your top lip and your bottom lip and you press them together, you will experience how to shut the fuck up.
Today is the beginning of the end and the start of a new beginning. Time has come to refine yourself and let go of the demons in your head that have held you in captivity for so long. It's time to flip the page and prove them wrong. It's time for rebirth. Yeah, time's up to say goodbye to all the haters, doubters, and non-believers trying to bring you down. In the blink of an eye, you'll realize that there's so much more to the book than the page you were stuck on. Finally, you will be free to live a life you love living instead of the life you think other people want you to live. Remember, you are the highest authority when it comes to knowing what you want and what you love. So stop trading yourself for the approval from others. Ladies and gentlemen, weirdos and geeks, please repeat after me. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a I don't give a fuck. 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 It's time to start doing the right thing. So trust your instinct, stop listening to others, and own your decisions. People will always tell you what to do, opinion how to live. So let's create space for what matters most to you. You'll be glad you did. Now start claiming your time and your mental well-being by saying no more. No more. Say it loudly and proudly. In other words, fuck you. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
And there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Feel like I just left. Tonight we have a debate event. This is Vince Wilson, The Vince Wilson Show versus Loodle Miss. And it is going to be really cool. It's going to be a great debate. Topic is the Trump administration's use of federal law enforcement has gone too far. We're going to find out. Without further ado, here we go. We got debaters. There's Loodle Miss coming in. And we have our man Vince from Vince Wilson Show. And yeah, let's let you guys introduce yourselves, and we'll talk about the format of the debate tonight, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, can you give me 2 seconds? I'm about to hit go live. I apologize. I'm
Loodle can go first.
Yep.
I'm sure. If he's listening.
I've got some freaking echoing from somewhere. I'm not freaking sure where. Oh, I found out where. It's my StreamYard is. I have the volume on my StreamYard, so I'm hearing it like 30 seconds later.
That's always annoying when you get that like delayed feedback.
Exactly. I was like, I hear everybody, but I hear everybody again. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're good
What
now.
a great day it is. The technology.
All right. Yeah, I'm a boomer at Spirit, apparently. But anyways, yeah, so I introduced myself. Yeah, I'm Loodle Miss. I do online debates. I teach literature and philosophy at college. Do the legal stuff in Ohio. Got a lovely family, bunch of kiddos running around, and happy to be here. Oh, former Marine, by the way, that too.
Of course. All right. What about you, Vince?
I am the Vince Wilson Show. I am a liberal political commentator, not a DSA dirty socialist commie. Okay, I want to make that very clear from the get-go. All right.
Classic liberal.
Classic liberal. I stream on Wednesdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and look forward to this debate. It's going to be really fun.
It is going to be very fun. And moderating is me, Gridwin Motorsports. And I, as always, it's going to be a great time. Now, normally, for such a prestigious event, I would have had all of the new Battleground artwork and everything prepared. However, I've been working on my airplane a lot, and it's just taking a lot of time. And I apologize, but, you know, priorities. My priorities are askew. They are askew. And so now you guys, I do not remember that we covered the format of this debate as far as openings.
I think you put it in the Discord. I believe so.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I couldn't remember if we had covered it or not. I'm sure if it, you know, it's not that big a deal. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page before we hit start. Because once we press play, the rules are the rules.
Yes, sir.
Let's see.
I think we were 5-5, then open discussion, then 5-5 for close. And then
That's what I thought too.
Is that what you remember, Vince?
Yeah, that is.
Do you need more? Do you need more time for your openings? I know that, like, you know, people do 5, 7, 10, 11. I've heard all kinds of. Yeah. Vince has got to go first. So whatever he wants to do, I'll match. Yeah. So what I've got here is we do 5 to 10 minute openings, then 45 minutes of to an hour back and forth, and then the closings, which will be equal to the opening. So you guys can, and then I never saw anybody say that they had any preference. So how long do you guys need for your openings?
I'm fine with whatever. Sorry, I was trying to mess with this stuff. I can do 5-minute openings or 10-minute openings. I might need about 5 minutes on my opener. So.
Okay, let's just stick with 5
7
minutes.
Or okay, we can stick with 5.
Oh, we can go to 7. We can go to 7.
Well, it's up to Vince. He's going to start us off.
The difference.
I don't want to make him reach for 2 minutes and then have me fill it up. You understand?
Yeah. Okay. I got. All right. So I've got 7 minutes on the clock. Again, the prompt is. I want to make sure I get this exactly right because it's very important to always have
the Trump administration's use of federal law enforcement has gone too far.
It's gone too far. That's right. Now, guys, I want a nice, clean debate. Okay, let's keep those ad homs. You know, keep them on the low. You know, be cool. If you get excited, that's fine. I hope that I don't have to really step in or anything. You start wandering way down off the subject, I will bring you back. That should not happen. You guys are both professionals, but I do have to say this at the beginning of every single debate because somebody will start talking about gingham dresses when they should be talking about Nike missiles. So, Vince, if you're ready to start your 7 minutes, you just start talking and I'll start the timer.
That sounds good. Let's go ahead and get started. So has the Trump administration's use of federal law enforcement gone too far? Yes. And honestly, I don't think it's close. Before I get into specifics, though, I want to draw a line around what tonight is actually about. It's not about whether Trump has the legal authority to deploy federal resources. In a lot of these cases, he clearly does. The federal government has real power here. The president has real authority over federal law enforcement and, under certain conditions, the Guard. I'll give my opponent that for free. So if his whole case tonight boils down to he could do it, fine, sure. Nobody's arguing otherwise. That's not the question. The question is whether he should have. Here's roughly how I'm judging that. And I say roughly because I don't think these 4 things need to line up perfectly every time. Was it necessary? Was the response proportional to the actual problem? Did it work? And was it applied evenly or only against people who happen to be on the president's bad side? 4 angles on the same question, basically. And look, these aren't standards I made up to be cute. Trump's own 2024 platform promised fiscal sanity, an end to wasteful spending, a stop to the weaponization of government against the American people. That's the party's own language. So if you actually believe in limited government, local control, not blowing money, not weaponizing federal power, that belief doesn't get to disappear the second your own guy is holding the pen. Now, what's actually happened? Not one deployment, not one raid we can shrug off as a one-off. ICE operations have expanded hard in American cities. National Guard troops federalized over the objections of the governors who are supposed to command them. Active duty Marines sent into LA to back up a domestic law enforcement operation. 4,700 service members at the peak, 700 of them active duty Marines, per the Department of Defense. That's where necessity comes in. I think it's a fair question, not a rhetorical one. If local police are still functioning, still arresting people, still handling protests, still telling DC they've got it handled, at what point does sending in thousands of troops stop being backup and start just being escalation? DC is a good example of the same problem. Actually, maybe the clearest one. Before the federal surge even started, MPD's own numbers had violent crime down 26% year over year. Homicide down 12%. I'm not saying DC had zero crime. Obviously, it didn't. But if the numbers are already falling that fast on their own, you have to ask whether putting troops on the street was necessary. And if crime keeps dropping afterwards, how much of that is really the Guard versus just, the police and federal agents who are already doing the job? Then there's money. And this part's not really debatable. It's just numbers. CBO nonpartisan group said, not exactly a hotbed of anti-Trump sentiment, but the cost of these deployments at around $496 million in 2025. They estimate 1,000 Guard troops in a city now runs $18 to $21 million a month, and that's just federal spending. Doesn't touch the local cost. In Minneapolis and St. Paul during Operation Metro Surge, a joint analysis out of the Minnesota AG's office and the University of Minnesota put local business losses at around $610 million. None of that by itself proves the operation was wrong, but hundreds of $millions, deployments at this scale, real damage to the cities on the receiving end. At some point, proportionality stops being a side note and becomes a whole argument. And it's not ICE, just ICE and the Guard. The DOJ piece might actually be the clearest case of all. Jerome Powell, a federal judge, looked at the grand jury subpoenas DOJ sent after the former federal chair and concluded the real point, maybe the only point, was pressuring him to resign or fall in line. Barely any evidence of an actual crime, the court said. Subpoenas got tossed. DOJ eventually dropped it. That's the neutrality problem in one sentence, basically. Federal law enforcement is enormously powerful, and that power gets dangerous fast the moment the standard changes depending on who's being investigated, which city it is, whether the governor's cooperating, or whether the guy just personally annoyed the president. So to be clear about what I'm not saying immigration law shouldn't be enforced. I'm not saying the Guard can ever help police. I'm definitely not saying politicians get some kind of immunity from real investigations. What I'm saying is narrower. Government power needs limits, even when the government technically has the authority to use it. Those aren't the same thing, and the gap between them is basically the entire debate. And I'll wrap it up here. There's a real irony sitting in the middle of all this, too. The same party that spent decades warning everyone about big government is now asking us to shrug at thousands of federal agents on American streets, hundreds of millions in deployment costs, a Justice Department that keeps circling back to whoever the president is mad at that week. If limited government and fiscal responsibility mean anything beyond a bumper sticker, they have to apply when your own party is the one in charge. When it's not necessary, when the response dwarfs the actual problem, when the cost doesn't come close to the benefit, when enforcement starts looking politically selective, that's the line. And between ICE, the Guard, the Marines, and the DOJ, I think there's more than enough here to say we're past it. So has it gone too far? Yes, it has.
All right, that's awesome. That was a really good opening. Loodle, Vigi DM'd me to tell you that your stream looks like shit.
Well, that's his opinion. No, I had to mute the freaking YouTube channels, your channel I was streaming from, because I was getting reverb. I couldn't find a way to fix it, so I just had to mute the stream and more or less fix that, I think.
Yeah.
So
And
actually,
he says we can't hear him, and I don't think he's paying attention to chat or DMs. Yeah. So
well, I was trying to pay attention to my opponent, but
there you go. And as you should. But Bidgie, thank you for helping out.
Let me send my wife. My wife might be able to open it on her computer and do it. So let me just send her the StreamYard link real quick, and then it's in her hands. If not, I'll get no views today. I'm not monetized anyway, so who gives a shit?
Yeah. Okay.
It's okay. My YouTube stream was like, I tried to do a new fancy way of doing a YouTube stream and tried to funnel it into anyways, it completely went kablooey. So we're all on Grid's YouTube stream right now, just so you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Send me all of your people.
All the views. All the donuts.
Send them all. Yes. And hit the like buttons and all the things as you come in. All right. Well, look, that was a strong opening, I thought. 7 minutes on the clock, Loodle. When you are ready, just start talking, and I'll start the clock.
All right. So the question before us tonight is not whether or not you like Donald Trump. It's not whether every federal enforcement action has been wise, restrained, politically tasteful, or even ultimately upheld by every court that's considered it. The resolution asks whether the Trump administration's use of federal law enforcement has gone too far. For the purpose of this debate, gone too far means that the Trump administration has systematically or materially used federal law enforcement authority beyond powers granted by the Constitution or valid federal law, or in violation of controlling constitutional and statutory limits. The standard recognizes two things at the same time. First of all, that federal law is supreme over conflicting state law, and while federal government is acting within its legitimate authority, as reflected in the Supreme Court case Arizona v. U.S., that's lawful. Second of all, federal officers themselves remain constrained by the constitutional federal statute, consistent with the principles originating in UNREASONABLE and governing their conduct when they are authorized to exercise federal law. But before we can decide whether something went too far, we also need to decide whether a particular incident can be fairly attributed to the Trump administration's use of federal enforcement at all. I'm going to apply a simple three-part attribution test throughout this debate. First, a federal nexus. The incident must involve federal law enforcement personnel, federal law enforcement authority, federal resources, or federal enforcement powers. Second, the administrative nexus. The conduct must result from a policy, priority, directive, authorization, deployment decision, resource decision, or systematic practice fairly attributable to executive branch leadership. A federal officer committing an isolated, unlawful act does not by itself for the Trump administration systematically use federal law enforcement unlawfully, beyond any pale, or in any way at all. Third, the enforcement nexus. The authority must be actually exercised for a recognized federal law enforcement function, investigating violations of federal law, apprehending offenders, prosecuting crimes, protecting federal personnel and property, preventing violations of law, or otherwise carrying out federal enforcement responsibilities. If an example fails one of these three requirements, it should not carry the resolution, nor should it be considered. This also means we need to keep our categories straight. This debate concerns federal law enforcement. The armed forces, the National Guard, are not federal law enforcement agencies. The administration that governs them is the Department of Defense, or now Department of War. Controversies involving military deployments, Marines, National Guard units, or any posse comitatus claim may raise serious constitutional and statutory questions, but those are questions about military authority, not the civil federal law enforcement authority the resolution asks and requires us to evaluate. So throughout this debate, I'm going to ask the affirmative two sets of questions. First of all, does the example even qualify? Does it satisfy the federal, administrative, and enforcement nexuses? And second, if it qualifies, what law was actually violated? What federal authority was exercised? What constitutional provision or state statute prohibited that exercise? And what controlling legal authority establishes such a violation? Because an unpopular exercise of lawful authority is not an unconstitutional exercise of authority. Within that framework established, we can turn to the substance. First, the enforcement of federal law is inherently a federal responsibility. That's particularly clear in immigration law. In Arizona v. U.S., the Supreme Court reaffirmed the dominant federal role in immigration enforcement. States and municipalities can generally decline to volunteer their own police officers to enforce federal immigration law, but local non-cooperation does not repeal federal law. Minneapolis can tell Minneapolis police not to perform civil immigration enforcement and not to help ICE out with anything. That does not mean Minneapolis can prevent federal officers from enforcing valid federal immigration law inside Minneapolis. California can disagree with federal immigration policy. That disagreement does not subordinate federal law to California policy. This is the distinction between anti-commandeering, which keeps the federal government unable to use state resources and make state legislators and state law enforcement agencies do their policy. The distinction and the federal supremacy, which gives the federal government the sole right to enforce immigration law and allows them the ability to do so. The principles underlying In re Nagel enforce the same basic point. Federal officers acting within legitimate federal authority must be capable of carrying out federal responsibilities despite any conflicting local political preferences. Second, we have to evaluate federal enforcement in the actual environment in which it occurred. Federal officers were not operating in imaginary settings where nobody obstructed arrests, attacked federal personnel, damaged federal property, or interfered with access to federal facilities. That was the reality they were operating in. And any associated costs with that were due to lack of state police power controlling the populace is not a cost the federal government under federal law is responsible for. Finally, I want to make it very clear what I'm not required to prove tonight. I do not need to prove that every Trump administration action was correct. I do not need to defend every federal officer. I do not need to establish that no executive official ever exceeded his authority. The burden imposed by the resolution is much more substantial. The affirmative must show that conduct satisfying the federal nexus, the administrative nexus, and the enforcement nexus was then systematically or materially exercised outside the powers actually granted the Constitution or federal law, and contrary to controlling constitutional or statutory limits. This may be demonstrated by a federal government exercising substantial power, but a constitutional system means that power continues to enforce legal limits. Aggressive enforcement is not the same thing as unlawful authority. Political controversy is not the same thing as a constitutional violation. Unless the affirmative establishes both proper attribution and a legal boundary that has been crossed, they have not proven this resolution. At that point, I'll go on to talk about my opponent's case. So let's talk about the DC. Again, the DC situation needs to be thrown out from consideration in this. The District of Columbia is under a federal jurisdiction. There is nothing wrong with even using federal troops or anything federal that Congress passes. And under congressional law, the president or even the mayor of Washington, D.C. can authorize the use of federal law enforcement officers within the District of Columbia. It's not a state. None of the difference with Pasa Comitatus, and none of the difference with the idea of the non-interference doctrine that allows states to keep out federal law enforcement doesn't apply here because the federal law reigns supreme in the District of Columbia. And the next thing I want to talk about is the cost. I have no idea what the cost has to do with anything that's constitutionally based. And that's why I want everybody who's listening to look back to my standard that I set up in the beginning of the debate. We're talking about whether or not an administration has gone too far. The way we tell if an administration has gone too far is has it violated the fundamental principles of federal law? Have the federal enforcement agencies violated constitutional law and the statutes that Congress passed to enable them to enforce the law under federal context? That's really the question here. So even if it costs, it doesn't matter how much it costs, really, because the whole point is not a budgetary problem. The problem is that if the federal law enforcement agencies or the administration instructing them violated constitutional, statutory, or congressional authorization. Of course, law enforcement actions are going to cost a bunch of money. And the priorities of the administration, which it gets to set under Article 2 of the Constitution and under the holding in Arizona v. U.S., allows the federal government to set whatever immigration priorities it wants. And the execution of those is going to cost money commensurate with how much the enforcement action.
That's time. That's time. I'm sorry, I had myself muted, so you got an extra couple of seconds there.
No, sorry.
All right. That was good. A lot of enthusiasm there from both guys. We're going to have I can tell this is going to be a good one. I'm putting 45 minutes back and forth on the clock. Now, you guys, again, I want a nice, clean fight. You guys have some fun, but just start talking when you're ready. I'll start the timer.
Yeah, so the topic of the debate is not about whether or not Trump's use of federal law enforcement is illegal. Rather, has it gone too far? So, for example, could there be a sense in which we have law enforcement that is allowed to be there, but goes too far in the sense of, again, like I mentioned, proportionality, effectiveness, the necessity to actually be there? Those are some of the things we can evaluate as to whether or not it is gone too far, in which case that is where the cost matters, because when we look at it, we're spending billions of dollars sending in National Guard into cities to sit there and enforce some kind of a law that even Trump himself has said he was sending them in to do. And now that's where the cost matters. If it's ineffective, which goes to effectiveness, which we can see where crime has been declining rapidly, it doesn't seem like the effectiveness has been really met. And it's intending to keep them there through 2029. So, I mean, when we talk, go ahead.
Is the National Guard or the Marines a federal law enforcement agency? Is it related to federal law enforcement at all?
Well, they certainly can act in a certain law enforcement capacity if the president were to deploy them. We can, for example,
but federal law enforcement, right? That's under the DOD or DOW chain of command, right? That's not technically at all even ever considered a federal law enforcement agency, right?
Well, but you said under the DC situation specifically, you said that under congressional law, they're allowed to authorize the use of those federal law enforcement officers.
Right.
So who now is
without invoking policy. So that was the policy comitatus argument you were bringing up with the Marines in LA. So like you can put troops in DC because it's a federal protectorate. It's a federal district, right? Without any policy comitatus worries. So, but the whole point is that regardless of what that happened, it's really tangential to the debate we're talking about because we're talking about federal law enforcement. So because there are federal troops in a federal jurisdiction, that's fine. I mean, that's legally permissible. It doesn't violate anything. And the policy comitatus stuff in California doesn't involve federal law enforcement whatsoever.
So, but I want to be very clear because this is where I'm a little confused on this. Either they are federal law enforcement officers, the National Guard, or they are not. If you're saying, well, they're federal law enforcement when they act within certain parameters of being met because the president has summoned them up for DC deployment, then there could be other situations.
They're not in any circumstance.
They're not in any circumstance. So even if the National Guard were deployed, so when they were deployed to what was it, Mississippi or Alabama, I forgot which one it was, when they were desegregating schools, did they not operate in any law enforcement capacity?
No,
they didn't. So they didn't make any kind of arrest or any kind of effectuate any kind of law enforcement measure at all.
Because of policy comitatus, they couldn't arrest anybody. They could support local law enforcement officers.
So this is what I'm trying to understand then why is Trump himself saying that I am deploying the National Guard out there to try to reduce crime? Why is he doing that then?
Because he's retarded. He's saying that, but that's not the administrative policy, and they're not executive law enforcement, right? Any kind of deployment for that has to go through the Department of War, the appropriate secretary, and down to the chain of command for those troops. There's no relation to federal law enforcement or the administration's control of federal law enforcement that relates to any deployment of troops or activation of the National Guard anywhere. Never have, never will be.
So then them being deployed. So this is where I'm confused. So, okay, you're telling me then that the National Guard can be deployed to DC to do law enforcement activity, but they're not federal law enforcement. They're not behaving as in a law enforcement. They can be deployed
to do whatever the unit commander decides for them to do, right? That's not a federal law enforcement activity, right? My whole thing about the DC, I was just trying to separate it out for clarity, is the whole posse comitatus argument, which I would agree with LA, with Portland or whatever, with trying to deploy any forces there, does not apply to DC. So I was just trying to get that really straight away. I'm not saying they're doing law enforcement activities, regardless of why they're there or not. They're not a federal law enforcement agency.
But if they're conducting law enforcement activity, then they are acting on behalf of the federal government. Thus, we can sit here and parse through and say what is federal law enforcement or it's not.
But that's the prompt. So I think that's very important we do that.
So then what would you categorize as federal law enforcement so we can parse through that and get through it?
Yeah, so we have a whole list. Basically, anybody who has arrest authority and is armed and authorized to conduct the administration's will for law enforcement. So I would say ATF, FBI, the Border Patrol, all those Border Patrol, ICE, Customs Enforcement, Park Service, the operations arm of the IRS actually can go as guns and can go out there would be all. So any executive branch authority, a Secret Service would be part of that has arrest authority and is able to carry a firearm would be under federal law enforcement. I have a substantial, I can go, there's 100 of them. I can read all the lists and sublists if you like.
Well, I don't think we need that. I would, the powers of arresting, I think, is what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I believe from what I'm looking at here, and I'm just pulling up random, trying to pull up some articles on the fly here. National Guard troops under the command of the governor of a state can perform law enforcement duties within that state.
I mean,
so
but that's not federal law enforcement. That's the governor. That's the state activation of law. The state governor can activate.
State activation of what? The state activation of what? The National Guard that is acting in a what? Law enforcement capacity.
Under the auspices of the governor, not the Trump, not the federal administration. That's the difference.
What branch? Wait, are they in the military? And who called them? Wait. Okay, so who called them up into Los Angeles?
Trump activated National Guard from different states, but that's again, that's
so
not
Trump
relevant.
activated them. No, wait, but it is relevant because when we talk about federal law enforcement and knowing that National Guard can perform law enforcement activity.
When the governor of the state activates them, they can function in that capacity. When federal government activates them, they cannot. That's why Trump lost the Posse Comitatus case.
So then we're
Trump
going to
was
sit here and say,
wrong.
okay, so then we can move on. We can move on to ICE if you want. That's perfectly fine.
We can go wherever. I'm just saying there's a distinction when a governor of a state activates that own state's National Guard to help with whatever the hell that governor wants it to, flood relief, policing for like a uprising or like desegregating a school, like whatever the governor wants it to do. The governor is the executive in charge of his own state's National Guard. There's no federal authority even involved there.
I think this is a very important factual point for us to get cleared up right now, because this is where I'm confused. Is that on one hand, we sit here and say that the National Guard can be deployed to DC under federal auspices to end up making effective arrests, right? We can say that. And so that capacity, they're acting as law enforcement. But then when we switch over to states and you say, well, the state is sitting there and not is only when the state enacts it. Well, now it's not. They can't do that. But when Trump deploys them over the federal, which again, this is where we were talking about earlier with desegregation, because there is a rule that they're allowed to deploy the National Guard over the wishes of the governor if they're not enforcing federal law. In which case, that is when the president can go in and activate them to be deployed there, and then do law enforcement capacity.
Not law enforcement capacity, no. And again, DC is separate because DC is a federally protected district. It's not a state. It doesn't have the state governorship. It doesn't have anything. It's protected by the federal government. So that makes it separate. So if you're trying to make things very clear, right? Like when the governor activates the National Guard, because like Reagan did it in California when he was the governor with the Berkeley free speech thing, right? He activated the California National Guard to go in there. When the governor activates the National Guard, they can do different things than the president activates them for some kind of military movement. And again, like Trump's activation of any military force to try to do anything in California or Portland was ruled unconstitutional and it ceased. But it's not a law enforcement activity. It's not.
Wait, but this is very important. Wait. This is very important. So when he went in, deployed the National Guard to do law enforcement activity, which you're saying was ruled unconstitutional and violated posse comitatus, would you not say that that means that it has gone too far? Trump enacting what is in essence can be a federal law enforcement body.
No, but that's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong.
How am I wrong?
It's because it's a different chain of command. It's a different structure. It's not federal law enforcement. It's under Department of War. It's not a federal law enforcement agency in any way, shape, or form.
Who's over the Department of War? Who's over the Department of War?
The president.
Thank you. So the president can go and sit there and say, hey, Pete Hegseth, I want you to deploy 700 Marines and 4,000 National Guard to Los Angeles. It was ruled that he violated posse comitatus. How is that not going too far?
The violation of posse comitatus, as I've already said, goes too far. It has nothing to do with federal law enforcement. They're not enforcing any federal law. They're not engaged in any federal law enforcement activity.
Then how would they have violated posse comitatus?
Because posse comitatus doesn't allow any military personnel to be deployed in civilian populations at all.
So then they were deployed for what purpose?
God only knows.
They were deployed. Thank you. They were deployed for law enforcement purposes to reduce crime. That was one of the reasons why in which they violated posse comitatus. Yeah, you did. Is Grit, is he frozen on your end? I don't hear you, Grit. You're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself down while I was chewing there. Yes. Oh, yes. He dropped off. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Sorry about that. Okay, he's back. He's in the back, and there he is. He's back. All right.
Was it me who froze, or was it everybody else?
Yeah, it was you.
You froze, and we're like, "Is he doing all right there?"
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
No, we got a rainstorm over here in Ohio, so like maybe that's it. I don't know. All of a sudden, I froze. I was like, "Shit." Sorry.
Just as a, I mean, I don't know if you guys want me to interject a point of clarity here, but the the California thing, the reasoning behind Trump's ability to send the National Guard in was because of the federal buildings.
Right, to protect the federal property, yeah, but it's not a law enforcement activity. But yeah. Well, not only that, but I have the case here too, and they didn't. I have the case from the California district court or whatever. It ended up when Trump withdrew the troops, it ended up getting dismissed for being moot. So there was a TRL on it, but I mean, regardless. And so that's so I'm not trying to be like bullshit you and say that Trump might have had bad intentions with sending those troops in there, but the justification wasn't for law enforcement. It was for protection of federal property and protection of federal law enforcement agents who were there doing federal law enforcement activities. But none of the military would be there under any circumstance. What?
The National Guard was there doing law enforcement activities, which they violated.
No. I said they were there to protect federal law enforcement agents doing law enforcement. They were there protecting ICE facilities, or that was a justification that Trump offered. I have no idea. The point is they're not part of the federal law enforcement agencies. The DOD is not part of that, specifically so. That's why posse comitatus exists at all.
Got it. So what about ICE? Do you think ICE is a federal law enforcement activity?
Absolutely it is.
Gotcha. So when we look at what ICE has done, do you believe that they have what would have to be met in order for you to say that they have gone too far? Like, what has to be met in that regard? That they have to violate some kind of a law?
I mean, I think I said it in my opening, but I'll go back. They have to meet the three nexuses first. The federal nexus, the administrative nexus, the enforcement nexus, right? Once you cross that, we have to ask actually whether or not the action that was in question was on the basis of an individual officer or something that was ordered to be done by the federal administration, the way the resolution is worded.
So when we're talking about these three parts, you're saying they have to meet these nexuses: the federal nexus, the deployment, the administrative enforcement.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Is that your nexus to figure out whether or not they've gone too far, or whether or not what are those being used for specifically?
I'll say it again. Like my nexus that's to see if the action that is in question can be attributable to the Trump administration.
To the Trump administration.
Because that's the prompt, right?
Okay.
And so the gone too far is whether or not the Trump administration, through attribution, has systematically or materially violated federal law enforcement authority beyond the powers granted by the Constitution or valid federal law, or in violation of a controlling constitutional statutory limit.
Could you agree that you can go too far without it necessarily being illegal? Or, for example, we could sit here and talk about where we've seen Trump not prosecute those who ended up shooting Alex Peretti and Renee Good, right? Well, like those Trump two haven't.
Trump doesn't have prosecutorial authority over that. It has to go to the
Oh, he doesn't. No. So then, gotcha. So
okay, well, there's two parts.
Again,
we can deal with that, but let me answer the first part first, okay?
Okay.
Because you were saying actually I kind of lost it now. Before you got to the prosecution thing, you had a valid question there. I don't want to leave it out there.
Yeah. For example, with Alex Peretti and Renee Good.
Sorry, does it have to be illegal? Yeah. Is it going too far, even if it doesn't violate the Constitution? I think by any kind of legal metric, right? The only way an administration, as a whole, as the prompt says, can be seen to have gone too far is if they systematically violate or substantially violate their grant of powers from the Constitution, as well as the statutory authority that enables them that Congress passed. So it's not like federal immigration has an option not to enforce federal immigration law. They're commanded by Congress to do so. The manner in which they do is dictated by the administration, but it's not like they can just we don't want it today. If they did, they'd be violating federal law on that side, right? So you can't really go too far. You can be aggressive, but unless you violate the grant of power that's given you by the Constitution, or violate federal law or the controlling constitutional statutory limits, I don't think you can say an administration as a whole has gone too far. I don't think there's any other metric that you could use to describe that, other than feels and bad policy or bad politics. We can talk about prejudice. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, because here's what I'm looking at is that we can sit here all day long and talk about the legality of whether or not Trump has the power, whether or not Trump, was or wasn't. And again, I want to be very clear. The only way we determine whether or not it's a violation of the Constitution is really when we get all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ultimately decides whether or not it was a constitutional or unconstitutional act, in which this administration has been very clear that they don't listen to any kind of injunction. And we can look no further than Abrego Garcia, in which Abrego Garcia. Yeah, Abrego Garcia.
In that too. Sorry, go ahead. We'll
That's
talk
fine.
about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, where Abrego Garcia ended up getting deported to Venezuela, or not Venezuela.
El Salvador.
God darn it.
El Salvador.
El Salvador. Thank you. El Salvador ended up getting brought back, and then they said, "Well, we want to ship you out to Africa," and they've been relentless. Yeah, and they've been relentless in trying to do so. And by the way, the only reason they brought him back was because the Supreme Court said you had to bring him back, and the Trump administration dragged their feet for months to try to bring him back. So when we talk about gone too far, we can see where this administration doesn't listen to the judicial branch. They quite frankly don't even really work around the congressional branch. So the legislative branch rather.
Yeah, they don't do.
They're sitting. Well, again, whether they do or don't, and we know Trump loves to use national emergencies and executive orders.
That's
so when
every president does, but that's fair.
Oh, I can prove it.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay, so then if he has violated posse comitatus, we can see that his ICE, I'll use it for funsies here, Gestapo has gone out to the streets and has, I'm sorry, I use TikTok language, has killed civilians, and there's no justice for those ICE officers, or for those people who ended up being killed by them. And then you see where he is ignoring Supreme Court orders to bring back Abrego Garcia. I'm working within the ICE framework here, even though I believe that we have seen where the National Guard somewhat has law enforcement capacity, but they really don't. So, but they're not federal law enforcement. That's fine. I'll put that aside. We can argue on ICE.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, I think that you mischaracterized the actual judicial the fundamental posture of the case regarding Abrego Garcia and Judge Boasberg. Like, do you realize that? So the whole thing was that Boasberg at 2 a.m. in the morning, when he was supposed to be on vacation, he's a district judge. The federally assigned cases are supposed to be at random, right? But the Abrego Garcia thing, a petition gets filed because their plane's leaving for El Salvador. He takes the case at 2:30 in the morning, issues an injunction to turn planes around. The government doesn't turn the planes around. Following that, there's a bunch of hearings about it. He holds Trump and his cabinet officials in contempt. Attempts to, goes up to the district court. The district court says that you can't enjoin the planes that were already gone, but the contempt's fine. Goes up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court issues a mandamus that smacks Boasberg down that says, you don't have jurisdiction. Every defendant in this case was in Texas. The only way you can deal with these cases is under a habeas petition, and a habeas petition can only be heard in the jurisdiction in which the defendant is currently held. All right? So at that point in time, it goes back up to the district court. The district court agrees that since they're out of the country, Boasberg is the right place to hear it. So then Boasberg issues the order that says you have to effectuate and facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia and any other people who make it to a port of entry. Then it goes up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says, no, that's not actually true. You have to enable the return if he comes back. There's no way that you can have him effectuate the return because the Supreme Court cannot order the executive branch to do anything related to foreign policy or foreign discussions. Alito's opinion clearly says that's a violation of separation of powers. Boasberg violated the separation of powers with the initial order. So if Abrego Garcia comes back, you have to let him in. That's the order that was given. But you do not have to effectuate or facilitate the actual transfer of him out because that would be a separation of powers violation. That was the actual Supreme Court holding. And then it was a long while before Abrego Garcia got out of CCOT and was able to come back. So Trump did not effectuate it. And maybe he could have in goodwill or whatever, but that's not what the ultimate order the Supreme Court told him to do. They removed the effectuate part and only facilitate if he comes there to a port of entry. And Trump's, whoever the hell it was, talked to the dictator of El Salvador and got him back somehow. And now he's back. But the fact
he's back. He's back now after several months of dragging his feet, right?
Well, yeah, but there was no, the Supreme Court orders that have a timeline on it, and they also can't order him to effectuate it. The Supreme Court.
Well, Judge Boasberg, didn't Judge Boasberg get irritated over that? I remember.
He did.
Of course,
he did.
Okay,
the Supreme Court slapped him down with 2 writs of mandamus, which are extraordinary writs, which is you're not following our actual instructions. Go back and fix yourself. And then he did it again. Go back to there are only 4 writs of mandamus issued by the Supreme Court in the last 20 years. Boasberg's gotten 2 of them. So regardless, I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just saying when something is being legally decided and rather fraught, right? The idea that and the final order that comes down to the Supreme Court that wasn't dissolved says you have to allow him to return if he comes back. But they can't order the Article 2 president to effectuate any kind of foreign policy That's what the order struck down as well, is that those were out of line, saying the executive branch has to do anything. Separation of powers violation, done and done. So the final order that came down is that you have to let Abrego Garcia come back in the country if he's allowed to do so. And then there was negotiations that happened with the guy who runs CCOT, that lovely little dictator down there, and Abrego Garcia came back. No one's privy to exactly the negotiations or what happened or what took so long or whatever. But the point is the final order didn't have a timeline, and the Article 3 courts can't order the executive branch to do anything post haste as far as like with a foreign country in foreign diplomacy. That was part of the ruling to the final holding in Abrego Garcia at the Supreme Court level. Yeah, sorry.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, no, I mean, so here's my thing. When we talk about like Abrego Garcia, or we can go to Renee Good or Alex Peretti. I mean, again, when we look at going too far, I'm still stuck on this idea that like when we look at like the National Guard, man, I'm sorry, I can't let go of that, because the idea is like when we sit here and talk about like federal law enforcement, I'm having a hard time understanding where in one instance they can act as law enforcement, that when the president calls them up, that is one way around. And by the way, the posse comitatus thing was around the 700 Marines, not so much around the National Guard.
Sure.
That was one of the, okay, but wait, that's important. That's very important.
But the court case combined both of them together, though.
They mentioned both of them. I don't remember them including the National Guard in that. I'll have to look at that. But I know for a fact it had to do with the Marines. And again, we see where, again, if the National Guard is able to go into D.C. because the president has authority over D.C., then the president has authority over the states as well, in which he can deploy them to the states in order to do law enforcement.
It's entirely different. It's entirely different.
It's entirely different.
What is? Because the
federalism doesn't exist.
Not for the District of Columbia. I mean, it exists in that so much as the District of Columbia is under direct and only sole control of the federal government.
Can we please look up? Because I had it ready here, but I don't. I'm
the Self-Governing Act for DC, or what?
Can the president, if the president calls up the National Guard, can he use them in a law enforcement capacity? Because this is incredibly critical to this entire argument. Because if your argument here is that I'm only allowed to focus on DC because the president has some kind of authority over DC that he doesn't have over the states.
No. You're getting me wrong. I'm saying we should throw DC completely out the window. It's not relevant at all.
How is it not relevant if they're able to do law enforcement capacity?
Because it's not a state. There's no federal law preempting them from doing anything, or it's a federal protectorate. It's fun. You have to get it through your mind. The laws in DC as far as federal government activity are entirely different than all the 50 states.
I'm looking at I hate to do this in the middle of a debate.
No, you're fine, man. You're fine.
I feel like this is incredibly important for us to look at.
So whether are you saying, okay, if the president declares the Insurrection Act and goes through, then can he have active duty military performing law enforcement functions? But not everything up to arrest. They can support civil law enforcement, but they don't have arresting authority. That's what differentiates that freaking military from federal law enforcement. They do not have arresting authority.
So they can't arrest anybody, right? So then when Trump, and as we've discussed, and this is what I think I'm trying to understand, because if the entire premise around here is that National Guard isn't law enforcement, or can act in a law enforcement capacity, but they can't act in a law enforcement capacity. Which one is it? I'm sorry. I know we spent the past 48 minutes trying to go over this.
They cannot arrest people.
They can't arrest people, but can they still support law enforcement? Can they still act in somehow of a law enforcement capacity?
I mean, law enforcement capacity is the ability to detain and arrest people. That's what separates law enforcement from everything else. So I don't know what kind of idea about law enforcement capacity you have that somehow makes that unique.
All right. So let's talk about the DOJ. Do you think the DOJ operates in a federal law enforcement capacity?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. So let's talk about the DOJ. So the DOJ, having gone after Don Lemon, Letitia James, we've seen them go after Lisa Cook, Jerome Powell, a whole bunch, and matter of fact, the Olympian surfer. Would you say, again, because this idea that it has to be illegal, which I disagree with, it can be legal in the sense of going through grand jury subpoenas and things of that nature, but it can still go too far in the sense of wasting taxpayer dollars, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of necessity. When we look at them going after Letitia James, or going after Lisa Cook or Jerome Powell, is that not going too far?
I mean, the grand jury didn't return indictments on any of them. Like, that's completely in line.
Well, no. So with Don Lemon, the federal. So initially, with
they
the
did
Don
return
Lemon
an
case,
indictment. Yeah, the grand jury
did
return an indictment. You're right. Yeah,
but that was only after two different courts said no. I'm not going to sign this complaint, and another court, the appellate court, said no. We're going to decline to sign off on this. So they went to a grand jury, and that was on January 29th. So again, when we talk about, we're seeing, and even in the Olympian surfer case, that's a great example as well, where they tried to present it to a grand jury and they said, no, we're not going, or rather, I think they did. I had to look at it again. They said they were going to, and then they dropped the charges. And Trump then said, no, I want us to continue doing so. So this is the Trump administration saying,
I think that, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I think that, I mean, it's kind of a recurring theme here. Like, you put a lot of weight on the dumb shit that Trump says and not what the administration does. Like, I understand that the administration, but the administration goes through the right legal processes to try to get a charge on somebody. And the executive, like the DOJ, has broad procedural prosecutorial authority to set their priorities and prosecute whoever they want to prosecute. The actual charging decision goes down to your line attorney, assistant attorney generals or assistant prosecuting attorney in every federal district. So, I mean,
okay.
The way,
so
the
you're saying
way,
you're waiving Trump's culpability here when we have a True Social post from September 20th of 2025 in which he instructed Pam Bondi to go after, I believe it was Letitia James. Sure. And again, we talked about it and we agree. Donald Trump's over the DOJ. Who can you tell me?
Was there a cognizable legal claim for anybody to make against Letitia James? Something that the law would recognize as a possible criminal violation. Did that or did not that exist?
I don't believe it existed. And in fact, if you go and look at this, we can see right here where is it right here? Oh, no, that was the one going after James Comey.
Okay, so let's talk about Letitia James first. Let's talk about Letitia James.
Yeah, we talked about Letitia James. Yeah.
So Letitia
it was about mortgage fraud.
About mortgage fraud. And there was enough, again, to get a grand jury or to get a charging indictment, right? It's probable cause or reasonable suspicion standard, right? You show there's a likelihood a crime was committed. That's enough to get it to a grand jury, and the grand jury can say yay or nay. There were documents that were produced that are publicly available that show that she said her Virginia home was for her
mortgage fraud.
I know, no, I agree. I'm just saying, the only way it violates, that's a legally cognizable theory. That is a violation of federal law. So they're not making shit up. Like that's something that people can be.
Wait. I want to be very clear here. This is the thing. On September 20th, Donald Trump tweets out to Pam Bondi saying, hey, go in and prosecute Letitia James. That's a summary of it. I don't want to read the entire thing because I could.
I'm not denying.
And then
that.
2 days later, he appoints Halligan to the Eastern District of Virginia with no prior prosecutorial experience. And that's the thing about this.
Her appointment was found to be invalid a couple of weeks later, and nothing she did stood. That's called the system correcting itself.
Wait, that's the system correcting itself? If the system is correcting itself, would you agree that it's gone too far, that it's now flagging certain safeguards within our system? And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
No, it's not. No. But okay, if for some reason, somehow, all the shit that Lindsay Halligan did when she was unrightfully appointed somehow got to carry through, and they're putting Don Lemon in a black hood and taking him to a freaking black site, and they were doing other stuff and not respecting the actual rulings of the court, then yeah. But no, he appointed Halligan. It didn't go through the right process because the whole thing there is that the judges in the District of Virginia where she was appointed, because of the Virginia specific law, get to confirm or deny the appointment. He can't just put anybody down there. The judges who sit in that federal district get to actually have a say in her appointment. And he didn't do that before she started doing shit.
What this argument sounds like to me is that if Donald Trump were impeached, well, that's just the system correcting itself. It doesn't mean he's gone too far. The system did what it's supposed to do. And this is very reminiscent of the debates I've had previously.
But you can only be impeached. But you can only be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, right?
So you're
violating federal duty, right? Well, I don't know why you brought up impeachment. I think it's a bad example to draw an analogy from.
Because what you're saying is that certain safeguards that are being put in place, and when they reach those safeguards, the idea is, well, it hasn't gone too far. But I would argue that if it has to meet that point, we should already have a system in place. The norm is that you're going to appoint somebody in who has that experience. So you don't have judicial.
Not about the experience. But it's not about the experience. Donald Trump could reach out to you tomorrow and appoint you a federal judge.
I understand that. Which we can look at.
He can make me a Supreme Court justice tomorrow.
He can make Emil Bove, his personal attorney, a judge. In fact, he did that with his personal attorney who's sitting at the head of the DOJ right now, Todd Blanche. Sure. And this is what I'm talking. Well, I said the head of DOJ. And that's why I'm saying is that when we sit here and talk about Donald Trump or the Trump administration going too far in regards to the DOJ, we're seeing where Letitia James, he's appointing somebody, instructing, which again, it was sounding like we were hand waving the Trump administration. He's instructing his DOJ to go after that. We can also look at the J6 slush fund if we want to. The J6 slush fund where he's suing his own IRS.
Well, let's not gish gallop here. Let's do like one.
That's fine.
Let's go case by case, right? So with the Letitia James thing, right? I mean, I think you would agree that there was a valid criminal predicate, a cognizable violation of law that she could have gone after her for, which they did. And what happens after that is up to the judicial system. And once it goes to the judicial system, Trump and the administration have no authority over it. The next thing about the appointment of Lindsay Halligan or Hooligan or whatever her hell her name was, like what the executive can appoint whomever they want to those positions. The problem was not that she wasn't experienced. The problem is that the Virginia judges who actually get to confer or get to have a say in any appointment in that district said, hell nah. And probably because she wasn't experienced, probably because she was a lapdog.
The grand juries, they did convene 2 grand juries that found that it was not. Yeah, they said no.
But that's the process.
And the DOJ appealed. That's the problem. But that's the problem I'm saying is that you're doing this thing where when we get to that metric of too far, we're now saying, well, that's just the process. It seems it's extremely similar to the conversations I've had where people sit here, and I understand this is not the argument you're necessarily making, but I've had this exact same one where they returned to Abrego Garcia. Well, they eventually listened to the Supreme Court. Just because it eventually happens, the fact we're even at that point to begin with means that we're at a point that we're too far gone on this part. That's just like the impeachment example. If we reach an impeachment, it's because the Trump administration or whichever administration has gone too far.
See, that's why I don't think impeachment's a very cogent analogy here, because like at that point, I think we'd all agree it's gone too far, right? But that's why I don't think it's exactly germane to the topics we're on right now. No, I would agree with you on that.
No, that's fine. I mean, like I said, we can just look at the fact at that one. We can look at the Mark Kelly indictments. We can go down the litany of lists. And I really point to, I think the most damning one of all of these happens to be really, quite frankly, the Jan 6th slush fund one. I think that's one of the most gross things that I've seen where Trump is the plaintiff and the defendant. He's suing his own administration for this.
Okay. Again, this is, I mean, I get you. That's fucked up. And as of right now, it's not going anywhere. Thank God. The point being is that's not a federal law enforcement action. That's Trump and the fucking IRS sucking each other's dicks.
Who was the one that filed this and who was he negotiating with? His own DOJ, correct?
It's not law enforcement. There's a civil side and a criminal side to the DOJ, brother.
So now we're saying that I thought we had an agreement earlier that the DOJ was a federal law enforcement. So now we're saying it's not federal law enforcement.
For criminal prosecutions, it is because it's enforcing laws. There's a civil and a civil rights side to the DOJ too. I assume we're only talking about criminal stuff because we're talking about ICE and Comey and Letitia James. If I didn't make that clear, I'm sorry. Like, you think he's criminally trying to go after the IRS? Like he's trying to.
Not right now, at least. Not right now, at least. I know he's probably talking about going after. I know he's talked about going after Tim Walz.
I'm not trying to be bad faith here. Like I'm really giving a very basic. Like law enforcement deals with enforcement of the law. Anything that's done on the civil side doesn't deal with enforcement of the law. Like it's very plain distinction.
So the law enforcement, like the DOJ, right? That entity is not a law enforcement entity then, is what you're saying. They don't enforce the law, which, by the way, if you violate
criminal law, it does.
Wait, is civil not involved like statutory law? Like it involves
they have a whole separate division for that.
Right.
So, but no DOJ in the civil division will be involved in any kind of federal law enforcement prosecution or activity. They're not going to try to put anybody in jail for violations of federal law.
Okay, let's ask this. Why would the DOJ sue somebody?
Civil rights violations mostly, or not.
Civil rights are What?
Civil
Rights are part of the federal protections.
Federal civil law.
Civil law. They are enforcing the law. They're civil rights.
So George Floyd, when George Floyd died, his family sued under statute 1983, which is a violation or deprivation of civil rights by an officer, right? And that goes for federal officers. It goes for local officers. I would expect very soon to see the same action taken by the families of Renee Good and Alex Preddy as well. The point being is that's a civil claim for money damages for some federal law officer or local officer on the local level, like with what's his ass who's rotting away in state or in federal prison now, who killed Floyd, right? Like that's a civil claim for money damages. That's not a claim that can take someone's liberty away. It's not criminal law. It's civil law. Criminal law, the government's on the one side, they're trying to take your rights away, put you in jail. The other side is civil law. Civil law is money damages, compensatory to make you whole. No civil lawyer, no civil division can ever put anybody in jail, no matter what. That's not even part of the relief that can ever be asked for in a civil case.
So it's not federal law enforcement to enforce the civil law.
You can't enforce civil law.
Wait, so there's no enforcement mechanism? So there's no enforcement mechanism built in civil law?
Like, explain to me the enforcement mechanism of civil law.
Yeah, like you're right. You're right to go in and sue, and you're right for damages and things of that nature. That would be your the enforcement mechanism there, at least.
Exactly. So you sue the government. So who's enforcing federal law? You as the plaintiff get to enforce federal civil rights law because you are the one suing the government.
But the government's the one suing other people. What are you talking about? That's what I'm saying. The federal government's going in and suing. Let me pull up the numerous cases
with the IRS or with what? Like in what situation do you mean?
Was the DOJ not representing the IRS in that instance? Let me see. DOJ sues. Let's see. I can just type this in. DOJ sues to stop Ohio court blocking courthouse arrests. I mean, I can go down this list. I mean, the idea that the DOJ doesn't just sue people.
But they don't sue individual citizens. They sue government. Oh, my God. Okay.
So
civil rights.
Okay. So do you think? Wait. OIG is a great instance in this. Office of Inspector General.
Okay.
They don't go after necessarily normal citizens. They're going after who? Government employees, correct?
They adjudicate claims with the agency they're ahead of. The OIG goes to every agency, yeah.
But they have law enforcement capacity, right, to go in and arrest individuals, correct? OIG does not have that capacity. So
the OIG can't arrest anybody.
I do not believe this is the case.
The OIG can make a criminal referral. The OIG itself cannot arrest a damn thing. Can't arrest a puppy dog.
Right here, the quick little search I did. Office of Inspector General, special agents with statutory law enforcement authority can make arrests, execute search warrants, and carry firearms, which is also the same.
Oh my God, those are statutory agents. That's not the OIG itself. The OIG is the freaking guy who runs it. Like, you need to be very more particular with these things, brother.
Okay, like so if the OIG, if the OIG can go in and with their statutory agents, just like the IRS has special agents that can go and arrest individuals. And my argument here is you're saying, well, no, this isn't law enforcement because or federal law enforcement capacity because the DOJ is suing another state. It's a government suing a government. Well, we've got the OIG that's literally going in and arresting other government agencies. So that or government officials, at least.
DOJ Civil Rights Unit. Like, you need to put these things in different buckets to understand it properly.
I understand. What I'm trying to say here is that either the DOJ is a federal law enforcement body or it is not. If it is a federal law enforcement body, then necessarily any actions that are taken underneath that body are federal law enforcement activities. Whether you think that it has to effectuate an arrest in order for it to be a law enforcement activity doesn't change whether or not it is a federal law enforcement. And now we're getting in this. Yeah, go.
Okay. I'll say one thing and then we'll move on. But like, the DOJ has three different sides to it. It has the criminal division, it has the civil division, and it has the civil rights division. There are three separate divisions with three separate subheads, right? Only one of them is involved with federal law enforcement activity, i.e. the FBI goes in, or the freaking marshals go in, or ATF goes in. The federal criminal side of that, of the DOJ, handles that. Nobody on the civil side does any criminal litigation. Nobody over there has any arrest power. Nobody there has enforcement power. They don't have agents running around doing anything other than guarding their courthouses. And those are federal agents that are already, they're marshals or whatever anyways. So, but for the point of the argument, I don't know if it matters. So I'll grant you, just call the whole damn DOJ, all federal law enforcement, deputize them all, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, then
I'll grant that. Fine, I'll grant that.
And that's great. I'm glad you are, because by granting that, you are have to try to reconcile with the fact of Donald Trump suing his own IRS and the DOJ representing the IRS in that regard, and settling with Trump to create a slush fund. How do
you realize that's been stayed and it's been dismissed without prejudice, right?
It has not been dismissed without prejudice. I have not seen it be dismissed without prejudice. In fact, there's actually been one of the things that the Trump administration. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my understanding of, and it's very angering, is Trump's attorney general. What the hell? He's Blanche. Is that right?
Blanche, Saad Blanche. Yeah.
Yeah, Blanche. The case was the government, the Trump DOJ, call it federal law enforcement, whatever you want, stop the suit. And that somebody asked Blanche during an interview yesterday whether or not he was going to just dismiss it with prejudice. He's like, well, I don't know. I reserve the right to resume it at any point in time.
And that's pretty far, right? The fact that Trump's
nothing's active. Nothing's active.
Wait. It's not dead though, correct?
It's not currently dead. That's correct.
It's not currently dead. So he could go in and
violating any conflict of law or anything else either.
It's not violating any kind of ethics in the fact that Trump is suing his own.
There's no live case.
There's no live case, but it's not dead. So then what's the opposite of dead? It's alive. Until he dismisses.
I think you don't understand the legal, until it's dismissed with prejudice, there's still a possibility of it being brought up. That's correct. But there's no live legal action proceeding in it, which means we're never going to get a merits ruling, which means we're never going to get an injunction, which means we're never going to figure out what a court actually thinks about this. I'll tell you what, I bet they fucking shoot her out of the water, which is why they pulled it back.
Wait. But I want to be very clear. You don't believe that this is an example of the Trump administration going too far?
Not with federal law enforcement, no.
So when Trump uses his own federal law enforcement arm to create a slush fund, it is not going too far. Well, we can move on to the next one, I guess.
It got shut down, right?
It was created. It was created.
Okay. But it's not. It was created in theory.
No, it was created. They settled. They settled it out of court, and they tried to dismiss the whole entire case. And then the judges had to go, no, we want to I forgot the exact legalese of it, but they essentially wanted to put it back into, and still look at its merits or something like that. I think 10 judges had to sign on to it in Florida for it. And they've even put Blanche in front of Congress to say, hey, are you going to reignite this case when we appoint you into the head of the DOJ? And he said, no, I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they actually said, well, I forgot.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but and even that in and of itself, we can just look at the Todd Blanche appointment, right? Okay. Just that alone. Would we agree that Trump appointing his own personal attorney who defended him, I believe, in his criminal trial to the head of the DOJ is not going too far?
No, it's not. It's unseemly, but it's not going too far by any kind of legal definition at all.
So
the whole thing is that if we go off of any kind of strict definition that has an objective standard, an objective meaning, and we go to the way things look or feel or creepy and our own different biases or the population's biases or how bad it looks or whatever, but there's no hardline objective standard, then we really kind of undo the whole constitutional system we were in here. There are strict boundaries that are set. When they are violated, they are freaking hammered on. And
that's time.
All right.
That's time, guys. Finish your thoughts.
I appreciate you, Vince. I appreciate you, man. No, I appreciate Vince.
You're good.
No thoughts to finish? Okay. All right, let's do closing arguments.
I think those are our thoughts to finish.
That's
why they call them closing arguments.
Yeah.
I said our thoughts to finish will be the closing arguments. That's why they call them closing.
All right. Close them up. You get to go first, Loodle.
Go. All right. So again, and I appreciate my friend here's debate the whole thing, and I understand that there are things that boggle the mind or look weird or feel bad about the Trump administration and how it's done a bunch of stuff, especially the policy comitatus stuff. Again, I'm not here to defend that. We have a very specific resolution. Again, the resolution asks whether or not Trump administration's use of federal law enforcement has gone too far. I gave a definition of gone too far. That means that it has to have systematically or materially used federal law enforcement authority beyond the powers granted under the Constitution or a valid federal law or in violation of the controlling constitutional statutory limits. Again, the Congress passes the laws that the executive branch then enforces. Everything that ICE has done has been enabled specifically under congressional statute. Trump's duty as the executive head of the executive agency, and then filters down to the DHS, filters down to the ICE field heads, filters down to whatever the big old honey badger looking guy is with the bald guy, to set ICE's priorities, right, to accomplish the mission. That's the executive agency doing what it needs to do to enforce federal law. At the same time, federal government is the only one who can enforce immigration law. The only one who can enforce immigration law are federal law enforcement agents, federal law enforcement officers. The military cannot enforce federal law. The military cannot enforce law. As we defined at the beginning, law enforcement are those individuals who have the ability to carry weapons and make arrests. Those individuals who have the ability to deny you your freedom and your liberty for their suspicion that you committed a crime. And so the military stuff we have to throw out. I'm sorry Washington, D.C. got brought up. I was trying to point out how that's a different thing for the military involvement there, even though they weren't doing police force stuff, because it's a federal district and not a state. So the whole power structure there is different than it would be in the posse comitatus violations if Trump or the administration were to deploy agents to states. The other thing, I'm sorry we never got to go, we started on it though, right, is the idea of the UNREASONABLE case, which is about the states not having to cooperate with any federal law enforcement if they go there. Their non-cooperation, like happened in Minnesota, California, Oregon, et cetera, right, is completely fine on the principles of federalism. The federal government cannot force the states to comply with any federal law. However, the states cannot keep federal agents from enforcing their federal immigration authority. And so the point being, there were tragedies that happened, and maybe it was a rogue ICE agent. And on those points, we have 3 active cases. The federal government has not found to proceed with a federal indictment on the shooter of Renee Good. The Alex Preddy case is still being adjudicated both federally and state, and there are Brady issues that are being discussed between the state and the federal government as far as evidence of the Preddy shooting. The other officer who shot a gentleman in the leg in Minnesota has been arrested. Minnesota State has indicted him on 4 counts, and the federal government so far has not sought extradition and has not sought to exert federal supremacy privilege to go ahead and get him out of that. So the federal government is allowing Minnesota state prosecutions to proceed under federal agents, even though if they were completely tyrannical, they could have exerted supremacy clause in UNREASONABLE and pull them back to a federal jurisdiction. There's another gentleman also who waved a handgun at people on the interstate in Minnesota who was also picked up by the Minnesota authorities, and he's fighting extradition. That's in Texas. And so again, those are live cases. We don't know how to go, but the Trump administration has not intervened in protecting his buddies. It's possible that even when you have the supremacy clause and individual officers are enforcing immigration action, they can do a bad, they can fuck up. But that's not attributable to the administration. That's that officer, and they will face their own day in court, as well as be liable to the 1983 claims, the civil rights claims against the administration, and they'll have to pay out tons of money eventually when that goes through, depending on what a jury of their peers, and by jury of their peers, I mean jury of the victims' peers, Renee Good, Preddy in Minnesota, will determine as far as the monetary damages for that. The thing I want to talk about as far as the DOJ, like we can disagree, I suppose, about what there's a criminal side and a civil side and a civil rights side to the DOJ. If you look it up, there are 3 sub-deputies who head each of those divisions. Okay, there's a criminal side which does law enforcement activities. You violate federal law, the assistant district attorney or assistant federal attorney in the state you're in will prosecute you. The civil side is if the government gets sued or there's disputes between states about certain conflicts of law between federal and civil regulations. And the civil rights side is for people who go do like MOUs with like the the police department in Missouri when Michael Brown got shot. There was an MOU between the Civil Rights Division and that Ferguson. There we go, Ferguson Police Department, to make sure that their policing standards are up to base, federal funding for body cams, etc. That's what that division does. But the only law enforcement agency that's part of the DOJ, I would argue, is the criminal side. But even if it's all the sides, right now there's been no clear overstepping of a boundary by the Trump administration as far as violating federal law or the authorization of Congress for that. And again, the attribution test I laid out, we never really talked about that. That's too bad. I thought that would have been fun. And again, like whether there's a federal nexus, an administration nexus, an enforcement nexus. And again, I've asked the affirmative to answer a couple questions here, right? Is if it qualifies as a federal action here, what law was violated? What statute was violated? What provision of the Constitution was violated? And there's none of the actions that he can claim that have actually are federal law enforcement and were also violated of any congressional law. And with that, I think the only vote here is negative.
Okay. You went just a touch long, but that's okay. Vince, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. First of all, we spend a long time trying to argue about what is or isn't federal law enforcement, but I think it's incredibly important because the question is, has the Trump administration's use of federal law enforcement gone too far? We agreed that the DOJ was a federal law enforcement branch, and we kind of quibbled over what is or isn't federal law enforcement within there. Nonetheless, we can even look at, we talked about what law was violated. First of all, I don't believe that a law has to be violated. I gave a number of different pillars we can look at to determine whether or not something has gone too far, and those are objective pillars. Effectiveness. We can look at whether or not it was needed. We can look at the fact of whether or not, oh goodness, I lost the one. So when we talk about what law was violated, you said one that I thought was very interesting, and which is something that is almost unheard of, which is the violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. And I thought that was very peculiar in the fact that that was used. When we look at what the DOJ has done, when we look at the Trump January 6th fund, when we look at the fact that he's gone after Mark Kelly, Jerome Powell, Letitia James, instructing some of his DOJ, in fact, getting upset at David Hearn himself, when he sat there and was just going by the pool and picked up a piece of the paper that Donald Trump had a terrible job at lining the floor with. He went against what Janine Pirro said. And this is the problem that I have, and this is where I'll land my plane, is that every time we engage with accountability for Trump, Trump wasn't involved with that, even though he's the head of that agency. We hear this also when it comes to, well, it was a violation of law, but the system worked its way out. And this is something we've seen time and time again when it comes to this administration. There's zero accountability to Trump, but we have no problem blaming, say, Todd Blanche. And that is exactly how Donald Trump has laid out his administration, to have zero accountability and everybody below him have that. And this is an impossible standard to sit here and say, well, I'm fine with saying, impeaching. That's different. That's different than, saying that a judge has just ruled something unconstitutional. Well, that's a system where it's working its way out. But that's not too far. That's not a far reach that we have to have a president be checked into line and saying, hey, that's gone too far. So it's always, and I want to be very clear, I don't believe for a minute that if this were any other president, we wouldn't hold Joe Biden to the same standard, or we wouldn't hold Obama to the same standard. Another Democratic president comes in, pay close attention to the standard and how it shifts, because I guarantee you it will shift.
Good job, brother.
Oop. Thank you. Thank you, Loodle, by the way. Thank you for having me. Great conversation. Grid, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah. You had like 4 minutes left there. That was a very, very good closing. Well, I've been dying, honestly, to kind of talk about this. This is it's really interesting because both of you guys
gather around, children. Grid's going to talk.
It's very interesting because I think that both of you guys, either one of you guys, could have made your point, but you were you got bogged down in some minutia that I think was kind of irrelevant. The first is that if I were Vince and I wanted to make the case that the DOJ has gone too far, I think Anson Knowles beat me to it. He's the metal food guy out there. He does a new alias like every few days. So
apparently he's not a fan of mine.
Well, he he's just
No, I don't
not
give a fuck.
tolerating bad debate practices. And so I agree with him. If you wanted to talk about how that they've gone too far, Venezuela would have been a good start. I don't think that it does prove that he went too far, but it's one of the better instances of where it could be said that by grabbing the leader of another country, that I think that would have been a better use case for you. Now, it's not technically law enforcement, but he did start it. But the path to it was by using law enforcement to go after the drug boats, basically making the United States Navy a pirate patrol and enforcing drug laws. And that, so I would have used that argument if I would have started with that argument, Vince, and I now would have started picking and stuck basically to this is an example. This is I'm not speaking of, and one of the two things you guys kept doing is I want to talk about this case. Well, you're not litigators. Yeah, you're not in court. You say, okay, this is an example of what I'm talking about, and this is what the symptoms are, and this is why I think this is it. You gave and this is why your time went so fast, and you weren't able to get to some of the arguments I think that you wanted to make. And Vince, but I think that you could have. I think that would be a very good example of Trump overstepping or the use of the Justice Department gone too far. Yeah. The problem is that Renee Good doesn't demonstrate that it's gone too far. That's a tragic accident, but Trump's perfectly within his right to put ICE on the streets. And right now they're actually they're killing it right now. There are 50,000 arrests this month.
No pun intended.
So I'm gonna be very, very transparent. I have no problem saying this. You're not gonna find this from any other debater, and that's totally fine. That's what makes me different.
Yeah,
I messed up on my notes. Okay, I'm not gonna blame my notes. Listen, I'm gonna give y'all a little sneak peek.
No, hey man, bear the soul, man. It's good for the soul.
Listen, I'm sitting there. The way I had arranged my notes was by city, not by jurisdiction. I had initially done one, which was National Guard, ICE, and it was ICE, National Guard, and military, and DOJ. I had broken it down that way, but then I said, man, it gets bogged down because I like to be chronological. So I said, let me break it down by city. Well, the other part of that is that, and listen, I'm spoiling the sauce in the kitchen here. Okay, that's fine. I heavily relied my notes around the National Guard. So about 80 to 90% of my notes was centered around the National Guard. So when I'm trying to find my ICE examples that I totally had, okay, I ended up kind of bogging that down. So I eventually found it. And the one thing that I had found with ICE was about the arrests and the number of arrests and things like that.
Yeah, they're up 50,000 arrests this month. And there's a lot. I mean, he's killing.
I was expecting to. So one thing, if you ever get a topic like this again, Vincent, this is something I prepared for. I guess we never got there, or maybe. But it was the Alien Enemies Act that Rubio passed, and then using the Alien Enemies Act to then go after a bunch of whoever the fuck they said. I think that's a win on your side. I would say. Yeah,
I would have thought, Vince, that you would have taken the most egregious example and just stuck with that, because when you go through and say, well, what about National Guard? What about ICE? There's all of this has been proven to be within his authority through the courts. And so us litigating it outside the courts is really irrelevant, right? Otherwise you're basically saying that you know better than the Supreme Court. And that's not necessarily the case.
Which he might, who knows?
Well, yeah, okay, he might, but at this point, it's been decided that is, as far as the courts are concerned, he is within the letter of the law, right? And I think that's a losing. Right. I think that's a losing thing to try, because exactly what Loodle did is he said, but they found him innocent. They did not prosecute him for this because he was within his boundaries. And so it's a losing thing to do that. But if you can pick something like Venezuela, where we, literally went down there and grabbed a leader of a foreign country based on Trump's use of the Navy and the boats and blowing up the boats and all of that.
Federal drug trafficking predicates too. Yeah, I didn't touch that either.
So, Grid, if you don't, real quick. So, not to relitigate this.
Sure.
So there's two reasons.
This is all just trying to help everybody, right?
Oh no, I appreciate it. No, because like I said, I mean, I'll admit not my best showing. I'll admit, because again, a large, yeah. Anyways, so the thing about it is that when we get into the multiple examples, it's rather to show, and I think that yes, having one specific example is good in terms of understanding that case through and through, instead of having a summarization of each individual case of, say, Mark Kelly, Letitia James, things like that. Where I disagree is the idea that we can, and I'm, this is nothing like against you, but I've seen this where every time I've engaged with these conversations, we hand wave actions because it had been eventually overruled. Right. Or in the case of, like, say, immigration with Abreu Garcia, well, he was eventually brought back. And that actually happened in my previous debates as well. And
but
so
wasn't
for
he
me,
the guy that the country themselves, that he like had another warrant in another country or something, and we had to like fight to get him back? Was that the right one?
No. What he had a
I can't keep all these illegals straight, to be honest.
He had a final order. There's a bunch of them. He had a final order of deportation to go back to El Salvador, right? Or back to Venezuela, rather. There was but he claimed like asylum because there was some bad, dirty, it was El Salvador. It was his home country. But some bad, dirty gang was like after his mama's arepas or arepas, like those little Mexican breads back in the day. Yeah. And he'd been threatened. And so he got a stay on removal to El Salvador. And so then and so the problem with him being sent to CCOT wasn't actually to send him there. It was that they sent him to the one place the order of deportation said he couldn't go. That was actually what was held.
Okay, yeah, and I remember there was some weirdness with that, but you know, and Loodle, I don't want to pick on Vince here. Loodle,
pick on me.
Clarity, man, clarity. These are blood sport debates. This isn't Oxford debate. Clarity, man. Beat him up. You had him. You had him good, and you're just
but fuck it. Why? I thought we were talking about ideas, man. If we're blood sporting, I would have done something different. Vince, we weren't blood sporting.
It's always blood sport. There is no such.
Fucked up,
so all right. Look. So
next time, Vince.
I like most of what you did was like really. You had it lined out really well, and I thought I was going to like it. The problem is that I think that all the points you made about the National Guard being there, there's nuance to the National Guard and how it's used and who can use it and when it's used, and the National Guard's a tricky thing when we start talking about balance of power and if overstepping authority and all of that kind of thing, because oftentimes there's some gray area there that you can get into with the National Guard. The more effective thing, I think, and you did a great job of kind of sidestepping it, was when he talked about using the Marines. Because realistically, the Marines should never have been activated in California to back up. It should never have happened. And it would, and I understand they were only there for what, like under 10 days, I think.
Oh, I don't care if they were there for 30 seconds. It's fucked up. They should never have been there.
It is fucked up. And you did a great job of diffusing that before Vince was able to jump on that and point and say, see, look, Trump did this. This is an illegal act. Whether or not they're law enforcement officers or not, this is an illegal act.
Sure. I was saying, yes, illegal. Why the fuck do I care for the debate? Ha.
Right. So you did a great job there. I think that I'm kind of losing my place now. I think you really could have had him when he started going into all of these other things that have already been adjudicated, and it's like, hey, Trump's already been, like this. He's within his bounds. Just because people don't like what he's doing doesn't mean that he's exceeding his authority. And you really should have hammered home that every time that a court has said, hey, you don't have the authority to do this, Trump has said, okay, no problem. We'll step back and we'll find a way to do it legally. Right. And we'll find another way. Like, we're not, he's not married to any one tactic. I think that's something that confuses people a lot, is he's just like, well, we're going to try this. Oh, wait, some judge somewhere says we can't do that. It's illegal. Well, can we fight it? We can, but it's not worth it. Okay, let's do something else then. Plan zebra over here because we've used all the other plans up. They're all we're down at the very end of the list. And I think that you could have diffused a lot of what Vince had to say with just like 2 paragraphs, and then he would have had to contend with that. And I don't think Vince could. Vince a really smart guy, but it's hard to contend with every time Trump. And this is now when I go to,
I think Vince's point that he went with on that though, which is not unfair, especially for the audience, to try to get some pull with the audience, is like, well, if he was actually not overstepping, he wouldn't have to be in front of the judge in the first place. But essentially, that's oversimplifying it, right? But that's
I want to say this to Loodle. I want to say one of the things I want to commend you on is legalese. I knew, if you didn't catch that in my initial opener, I knew because I had already looked in. I was like, I know I'm going up against somebody who's very well versed in law. And I tried to kind of not try to. I mean, I want to be very clear. When I say try to, it comes off as if I'm not like, I don't hold this belief. No, I do. But I wanted to kind of steer the conversation because I do believe that we can look at stuff being too far without it being legal. Like there's things that you can do theoretically that are legal that are too far. But
yeah, that was like shock.
You did.
Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Right. And I think you definitely played into the legalese more than I had anticipated. And again, me trying to scramble for my notes. Okay, those damn notes. I'm gonna do better next time, Brad.
Next time we go, brother, you better have a printout copy, have one post on the wall.
I think you guys have a lot of. I mean, you guys are both really smart. You just got to tighten them up. And Vince, I'm really, what's interesting is I just had a deal with Vince the other night, right? Like a week or so ago.
How'd that go?
It was funny because I prepared to have a debate on DSA and why DSA is bad and why that why Democrats, and we're talking about garden variety liberals here, not the extremist, but liberals ought be voting for Republicans rather than the incumbents. And I did not in any way prepare for Orange Man bad at all. And it was 4 of them. There were 4 of them.
If you walk out of your house in the morning, you better be prepared for Orange Man bad. You fucking take a bath, you better be prepared for Orange Man bad.
I had Pisco, and I had Castle, and I had the fuck is that other guy? Vigilante. And I had and Vince was there. And literally, like the entire argument was sidetracked into Orange Man bad. Like and I kept saying, why? What do you care? He's out in 2 years. He has nothing to do with any of this. Like, but Orange Man bad. I'm like, oh, just get away, get off of me, Orange Man bad. Whoa. It was terrible. 4. And look, my partner Glenn was, he's all right, but he was not carrying the water I needed him to carry, brother. And,
Glenn? Fuck.
Glenn just got done from the gym. He's like, man, what's going on? Oh, yeah, right.
He was still like letting them cool down or whatever. And he's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. So it's me against those 4, and they're just running straight Orange Man bad. And I'm like, no, that's not what he said. And oh yeah, he did. No, that's not what he said. Like, and oh man, it was great. It was an experience.
Hilarious.
I forgot all about that debate, to be honest, man. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about the debate.
Did you?
I did until you mentioned. I was like, oh yeah, I did have that one.
Yeah. Well, why would you? I mean, it was not one of my finer moments, but certainly it wasn't my worst debate ever. But I was literally in the middle of it. I'm like, why are we talking about Trump? Like, what are we doing here? And they didn't, and they were like, oh no, DSA's not so bad. And I'm like, that's insane. What are you talking about? DSA's not so bad. None of you believed it. None of you. Not one of you believed that DSA is preferable to having good, clean, honest Republicans in office. Not one of you believed that. But you are, but man, Orange Man bad. So Vince gets no quarter. Loodle.
No, that's okay. I mean, and look, I'm not gonna lie. Like, and there's no excuses. Like, listen, Loodle, you did a great job. You definitely got me on the National Guard thing. I had not really prepared and I had not prepared real well for that argument to come up when it was in the back of my mind. I didn't prepare for it. So kudos to you on that end. I really do.
Prepared for like the Trump IRS thing, really, because I was like, it's kind of dead, so I don't know if it's actually a thing. But no, good for you bringing it up, because like you had valid points there. And again, the DOJ, like you did get me to admit honestly that the DOJ is a law enforcement agency. In my mind, I was thinking like Crim side, but I did admit that. So way to hammer me on that, really.
I was really surprised that Vince went there, that the DOJ is a law enforcement agency. I mean, it is, but it's more of an administrative agency, right? Like,
Grid, walking into that was
actual DOJ cops.
To be clear, mind you, I know Loodle's, like, not know, like, in a weird way. Like, I understand you have a legal background. Understand. Yeah. So I'm sitting here. I know that I'm going into landmine territory. So Loodle, something that I would recommend for you is an unsolicited advice.
No, please.
Is like, when you go into those debates, lean into your strengths, because I swear to you, if I was going into like black hole territory, I had nothing. I mean, I had Letitia James and stuff like that on my notes, but like, if you would have known those cases, like Grid was saying, I'm not gonna lie, bro, you probably would have like stomped the shit out of me. I probably would have been like, you know, you were hitting me with some legalese questions, and I was like, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know these legalese questions.
Like Letitia James, literally. I mean, Letitia James was. I mean, that was not Trump going after her out of spite. Although it should have been, because she literally ran on. I'm gonna go after Trump. I'm gonna put him in jail. She literally ran her entire platform.
I know, but why would I mention that? That kind of proves Vince's point.
No, but it doesn't though, because he waited. He was actually like, yeah, I don't know, you know, like, should I don't know, I don't know, guys. It's a little weird, and but I think that he ended up kind of having to, because they were, you know, they were still going after him even after he was elected.
Well, sure, but the previous,
so I think his preference would have been to not have had to go after her, but he kind of didn't really have a choice.
It was kind of like the worst shot he could have shot, though. Like, if you're going to go after her, like, that's some weak sauce. And she could have gotten like a big fine for it, and he could have wagged his finger at her, but you know.
But I mean, sometimes it's better to just make it a draw.
Well, the whole point is that there was a legally cognizable case. They didn't make shit up entirely. There was a violation of law. So it's okay. I mean, it's not violating a thing to go after.
Yes.
Does it look like shit? Is it bad form? Is it kind of like vindictive? Yes to all the above.
It appears that way. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But, and
again, Orange Man always bad. So Orange Man always bad.
Well, to be clear, Grid, the full True Social post, it lays out the precise rationale. At least in Trump's eyes.
Trump ever has any precise rationale about anything.
I'm not on True Social.
I see what you did there. Okay, I'm on True. I'm not on True Social now. No, and okay. Oh no, no. Look. So, no. Oh no. So look, at the end of the
signed by the Nuge.
Oh no. Okay, so I'm gonna get canceled. So
no, exactly. You're cooked, bro.
Are you gonna get thrown out of the Liberals Club for hanging out with us?
All of the subscribers are gonna unsubscribe, brother.
Listen, I'm a liberal. So no, we tolerate other opinions. Anyways, that will get me canceled from the DSA. But anyways, the very end of this True Social post, he said, Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. Maybe I could have leaned into that, but that clearly shows. And then that was September 20th.
Well, that's what I remember in the press conference. It was like, hey, we don't really want to do this. We kind of have to do it. And or we look bad. And either way, they were going to look bad, but
a lot of the DOJ, there's been I think I just remembered. Ludus, I don't know if you remember hearing about this. There was an attorney who like begged the judge, like, please hold me in contempt. Like she was like, I am so over.
It was in Minnesota in an immigration case in the federal court. Yep.
Yeah. And she was like, yo, I am like so stretched thin. I'm like, I'd rather be put in a jail cell for 2 days.
Good night sleep in jail. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you heard about that one, Greg. It's wild. She got
fired shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah. So on another note, what do you guys think about, a few months ago, I don't know if you guys remember this, it didn't make a lot of press over here for some reason, but, the EU basically passed, the EU General Assembly, or whatever they call it, passed a law that basically says they're going to deport all illegal immigrants. And that includes the people who on expired visas that came under illegitimate refugee or whatever status, and it's been a couple of months ago. I think it's 4 months ago they did this.
Well, the issue is, right, all the constituent member states of the EU don't have to abide by an EU resolution. So if France has a specific law that's been passed, or Britain has a specific law that's been passed governing the deportation of illegal immigrants, that overrides it. And so it's like great to say that, but I'm not sure what enforcement authority it's going to have in any given country.
Yeah, I mean, the EU Assembly is kind of toothless, but there's some things they can do. But my question really is like,
people. Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think the thing is that that's pretty much what the most of the laws that are being pushed to make to go after the illegal immigrants here, and the tactics are along the lines of what the EU did. Because they're basically saying that if you came here on a legit visa and it's expired, you've overstayed, whatever, they can get rid of you. Or if you're playing the visa game, where you come here on a visa, then you plead asylum, which is technically legal, right? But people have been doing it kind of like under the table deals, and so you come over here on a legit tourist or whatever student visa, whatever, and you go and then claim asylum, refugee, whatever, and so we have ramped up revoking those visas on a massive level. We're up to, it should exceed 200,000 this month of revoked visas. That's a lot.
So I looked into this, the EU thing. So it's not that they're necessarily going to go and round up everybody. What it is, from what I'm seeing,
it gives them the power to deport.
Yeah, ish. So it says a return decision issued, and a return decision is like us saying, "Hey, you're not here legally. You need to leave." Right. The difference is the EU, they have a set time frame. So there's a certain time frame that you may get your business and affairs in order, and then you leave. This just tightens that time frame and says, now if a return decision, only thing that's changed is now the time frame is that you have to immediately get up on a plane and get up on out of there. So that's essentially the difference in the two.
Right. So, and the other thing it did is it made said that all countries have to have uniform, between all EU members, uniform return and deportation measures for each country, and also establish like return hubs or deportation centers in each of the countries, like ports of entry for return, essentially.
Right. And I guess my point is not that they did it. I don't really care. I'm not in the EU. As far as I'm concerned, they're a lost cause. But the point that I was really making is that we seem to be either they're following us or we're following them, because again, we've ramped up going after these people who have come over here on some sort of visa legitimately and then fraudulently claimed asylum or refugee status. And it seems like we've ramped up basically saying, hey, you're lying and you got to get the fuck out of here. Right. And so it's interesting. What do you guys think about that?
Well, it's not clear yet who what category of immigrants or visa overstays will be affected by it. Like if they're proper asylees, I don't think it'll be affected by this. If you've come over in boats or whatever, I don't know if that'd be affected. Again, like if you've been there for several years, have a kid, got married, like it's very unclear how this will actually be enforceable.
I'm in.
Well, I know that.
Good.
I was gonna say, I know that, I don't know about necessarily visas, but I can say like TPS status. This is something that I recently just started kind of thinking about more of. Is you have a situation in which you have TPS status for, say, Haitians, mainly due, in fact, to initially start under the Obama administration with the earthquake. Trump, I think, reluctantly had to extend that because of courts. Yeah, and then the Biden administration extended. So now you've got a situation in which Haitians have now been in this country for upwards of 14 years and are now being told, hey, you're going to have to get your butt up on out of here. And, when we talk about that, with no pathway, by the way, at all, to say, hey, it's been a failure of the government to do this in a timely manner. 14 years is a long time for somebody to be here when you think about it. So, that when we talk about, going too far or things like that, that's some stuff I do think about. Now, granted, you can probably attribute that to, go ahead.
Well, I actually had expected to talk about that. I thought you were going to actually cover that. So actually I had a whole couple pages on that. So it's interesting is that you can think about the moral, that sounds fucked up, and it does sound fucked up. But the Supreme Court actually issued the rules on a ruling on it recently. And the whole thing is that it should have happened earlier, but courts got in the way, even though the actual statute says the Secretary of Homeland Security's decision is not subject to any judicial review. A bunch of justices reviewed it anyway, the district court level. And then finally they're like, nope, it means no judicial review. So now it's gone. I think Haitian status expired on 1 July. And so now they have 90 days to get their shit in order, which is terrible. It should never have gotten that far. But that's what's going to happen now. And the courts ruled on it. So it's bullshit, but that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
All right. And look, I understand there are people like that out there. More specifically, we're revoking up to 200,000 of these visas a month where they've come here under a visa and then claimed refugee status, which is illegal. It's
actually fraud. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fraud. It's absolutely illegal to do so. But we've allowed it, right? So I've talked to some people lefties that are like, well, they came here. Who cares if they broke a process law and committed fraud? They got, now they've got a visa or a refugee status and they should just stay here because of it. And I'm like, no, they lied. So they don't have that's double the reason to get them fuck out of here, right?
They're parolees. So their refugee status or their asylum status is still yet to be adjudicated. They're parolees right now waiting to be adjudicated.
So here's how I view this is there's to me a descriptive claim and a prescriptive claim. Obviously, the president has authority in essence to put in any kind of, I believe he has a very broad authority actually over immigration. And so for me, when I look at that, can he deport them? It certainly seems that way, especially given what has happened. But I think that this is where obviously the differentiation comes with me being left wing. I think that there ought to be an evaluation that's looked at it and going, okay, what led these people to come over here in the first place? How is there? I mean, again, we can talk about their criminal record, and I've heard conservatives make the same argument of, well, you cross the border, it's a crime. There we go. It's like, okay, hold on. Let's be serious here for a minute. Let's talk about what crimes have they committed while they've been here in the United States. And this is going back to the Haitian thing, right? It's like, I would rather see, instead of us, in my opinion, wasting taxpayer dollars, going through and, kicking grandma out who has been nothing but a contributing member to society, has paid taxes, paid sales taxes, property tax, whatever other taxes she may have been paying. Maybe she's been serving her nonprofit organization within her company. All those things considered, hey, we ought to probably try to give her some kind of a pathway for her being here. With that being said, we should try to batten down the hatches where we can proactively. So we've got this issue from prior presidents. Let's put that in one bucket because it's no fault of their own that previous administrations had certain policies, whatever those policies may have been, TPS, right? But how can we fix this going forward? And that is where I think that the most rational and probably the liberal perspective comes out. Then you get into the whole DSA thing where no borders and
yeah, right. But let me ask you one thing. Okay, so like the TPS people, right? The Nepalese, the Tibetans, who just had another freaking flood and earthquake there, who might need TPS status again now. But that's another thing. But so take the TPS people out of it for now. Like the visa overstays. Some rich kid from Britain who came over here on a student visa and now is claiming whatever or was overstayed, or one of the kids from Saudi who came over to study petroleum sciences at the University of Wyoming and is now overstayed or something, right? People aren't here for
we're cutting
years,
in and out,
right? I'm cutting in and out.
a little bit. You're good now. It was just like it's volume going down.
Oh, weird. I don't even know.
You're good.
Let me see if I can. Is this better?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. So like the ones who are like visa overstays or visa fraudsters, right? Who've come here on a visa by airplane from Britain, from Saudi, from UAE, from whatever, right? And after they went to school and got a degree in petroleum sciences from Caltech or whatever, right? Now they're trying to skate the system and trying to either convert to an H-1B or claim refugee status or whatever, right? Like those people who have means and wealth in their own country, as well as are violating the visa system, like that would be a different category of people than like the Abuela who's been here for 20 years, right? For you and the liberal.
Well, okay, but and
I mean,
we have ways of dealing with all of them. Those are by and large, I think those are a smaller percentage of the visas that are being revoked right now. 200,000 a month sounds like that's crazy, like that's nuts. So, and obviously, in what I found is that those were all like various forms of visas, like student visas that had been converted to refugee status, where they had gone in and basically said, "I'm fleeing whatever." Right.
And that's asylum status, but asylum status.
Yeah. And so, but like I have known people who have overstayed their visa as students, or J-1Bs, which are people that are able to work here while they're studying. And I've known people that have overstayed their visas, and eventually it catches up with them. So it's just interesting to me, really, what they were all just perfectly. Normally, I would say that they were not criminals, right? And obviously they lived in fear basically every day of somebody finding out their status because they didn't want to go back to China or wherever they were from. But at the same time, we have laws for a reason. So how do you reconcile, because both of you kind of said something that I think is a normal thing to say. Well, is it really a crime to come across the border? Who's hitting the mic?
I'm not.
Oh, it might be me.
I don't know what that is.
Hold on.
What is that?
What is it? What is it doing?
It's thump.
It's like a bass beat.
Thump. It's like a metronome.
Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, now it stopped.
Whatever that was.
Is that from your rap career? You're starting DJ Vince?
I guess. I don't know what it is.
It started again. Don't. Boom.
Okay, hold on.
Stopped.
That's good. He's muted again. He has to mute himself.
Oh,
that's terrible.
He's got the Energizer Bunny banging on his microphone.
I know, right? But I mean, both of you guys have alluded to this idea of that just being here illegally in and of itself is not that big a deal, really. And what crimes have they committed here?
No, I didn't allude to that. I didn't.
Okay, well, Vince did.
Yeah.
So, what Are the laws worth the ink they're written in?
I mean, the laws are only worth the amount the government's willing to enforce them.
Sure.
And so many administrations had not. The status quo change of some administration trying to actually enforce the law gets people off their kilter.
Yeah, that's true. When I was there, I had a very interesting professor once, and he said, "Do you understand what the crime rate really is?" I'm like, "Well, that's the number of crimes, whatever." He's like, "No, you're only half right. It's the amount of reported crime."
Sure.
So I just want to mention this after looking at it. It does look like you're able. By the way, I hope the sound is better. I had to.
That is way better. I don't know what.
I use voice meter banana, so it's like a internal interface.
Yes.
Anyways.
Oh, okay.
I tried that.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me.
It's a lot of So
it's back again.
It's back. Whatever you touched.
I touched my
desk. Don't touch that.
The big red button.
Hasn't your wife told you already? Don't touch that.
Unless you buy me dinner first.
All right. Is this better, worse? What is it? Where are we at? We're so good.
It's about the same.
It's a metronome.
Bump,
what the
bump,
hell?
Bump. It's like a 4/4 time like bump.
Anyway, while he fixes that,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just and so the crime rate is the crimes that's reported,
right?
And all the statistics are the crimes that the police have been able to or felt like actually writing a report of, right?
And that are aggregated, actually reported to the federal database. Yeah.
And so we don't. I mean, it's a very interesting quandary, right? Because we all want, I think, laws enforced, but most of us are willing to be like, well, this law, what does it really matter if we reinforce it? Whatever, it's fine. Or like speeding. I drive 10 over every day.
Jaywalking.
Yeah, everybody jaywalking. I'm not even sure that's a law in the books in some places anymore. I think that's been removed just because nobody cares.
Well, no, there was a guy, if you see Civil Rights Lawyers channel, there was a guy that he was homeless and the police were out to get him, arrested him and beat the shit out of him and tased him in New Jersey like a couple days ago for jaywalking.
Is that the guy in Virginia or wherever, the civil rights attorney or whatever?
West Virginia, yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
He's a good dude.
So I want to say this because I think the mic sounds better now. I just changed the setting in here to
you're good.
Actual microphone. All right. Anyways, so what I was trying to say is that I think that when we talk about like immigrants who are here on a visa, then apply for an asylum, is it back?
It's very quiet now, though. Forget it exists. Forget I said anything.
All right. I'll put. Maybe it's because I got my fan blowing near me.
Stop moving.
All right.
Go ahead,
Vince.
No, it's still there. That's all right.
What the?
We don't
What
care.
did
It's
you
fine.
change
Talk
between
over
the
it, Vince.
debate
Talk
and
over
now?
it. Talk over it. Just talk over it.
This is wild. I tried to use voice meter banana and it never did work, like at all. But
Okay. I am.
oh, there you go.
So I'm gonna put my hands up here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hands up. Don't shoot. You remember
Don't
the
shoot.
saying from BLM? All right.
Yeah,
Anyways.
Mike Brown.
All right. So, I didn't think about that implication. Now I feel like I'm making fun of somebody. So,
It's bad.
I think that there needs to be a pathway. Is it? I'm done. I give
It's
up.
fine. Leave it. Stop that.
All right. Listen, I'll just get my saying now. I'll just get my saying now for crying out loud. So look, I just think that people who are here on a visa should have that authority to be able to go in and switch it up because situations within the country that they just came from may have changed. And so in order to take them to go back to their country, it may now be a war-torn country.
You're arguing for discretion, right?
Right, discretion,
Yeah, you're arguing for discretion. That's a reasonable argument.
Well, it happens already, though. At a deportation hearing, if you get deported, right, you have an ability before an Article 1 court judge to make your case and be like, hey, shit's bad in fucking, I live in Iran.
Uganda.
That's what's happening there now, right? Or whatever, right? You can make the case in front of the immigration judge for an exception. And then
So I actually know of
I
a
agree with
case.
this on that.
Yeah, so discretion is one of the roots of law enforcement, and it's a very interesting thing to me because I actually know of a case where a guy he was from, I think he was from El Salvador, and they were having like a little war or something down there.
Oh yeah, it was torn apart for years and years.
And he's like, and he literally told the judge, he's like, look, you got me. I'm fine. Don't send me back to El Salvador. Send me to Mexico. Send me to wherever. Don't send me to El Salvador, because if I go to El Salvador, they're gonna kill me. Like I'm gonna end up, it's just really bad there. And I don't know. I think maybe he, I don't know what his.
And that was the exception that Abrego Garcia got in his 2013 deportation order. Same exact thing. Oh, we can't hear you, Vince.
No, I know.
Sorry.
I was talking about audience. I was trying like.
Oh.
I'm seeing it doing the thumping on my voice meter. So like I don't know what the hell is going on.
Did your audience hear it?
I don't know.
Oh,
but
okay.
anyways.
Yeah, hell with those guys. But I think that there's some discretion there. But so let me ask you, Vince, because you're almost a lefty. What?
Don't start that.
and it started thumping.
What the hell? All right.
Right as I said, almost a lefty.
I think Grid's doing it.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing anything.
Here, I'll switch it to my microphone. I'll try to switch it or something. I'll figure out. I don't know what the hell it is.
It's not that bad.
Anyways, you said. All right, you said I'm almost a lefty. I'll mute.
Yeah, you're almost a lefty. So, what's your like answer for the immigration problem, really? I mean, do you just want open borders? You just want anybody to come here willy-nilly or whatever? Or do you want some immigration enforcement? What does this look like? What does the right thing to do look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, the right thing for me to do, I would like to see. I'm very like traditional in a lot of ways. So, like when we talk about abortion, I believe in a Roe v. Wade framework, the way it existed previously. Same thing I believe with immigration, right? As I think that immigration we ought to look for pathways to citizenship for those who are here. Those in the proactive sense, I do believe in having a stronger border. I do believe in having technology and maybe even funding certain border patrol agents that are at the border. I think there's something to be said about that. A lot of people, especially when I was in the conservative space, misunderstood why a border wall existed. I want to say this, though. I think having gone through the thoughts, I think that the Trump administration has definitely done some weird stuff with the border wall and also done some weird things about federal zones. So he's tried to essentially militarize certain zones on the border to allow the military to go in and effectuate arrests at the border, which I know is kind of tied to our earlier conversation.
Sure.
So what I would like to see, stronger, more money allocated to the border, more money allocated to our asylum process. I would love to see there be a process created for those who are here currently, because I do believe that about 90 to 95% of those who are here illegally, whatever that looks like, are here being contributive members to society. I do believe that they're here they came here for a reason. It's not to come here and steal the pot of gold. They're here to try to provide better for their family. And that, I didn't get to that in our debate, but I definitely did find, like, in one instance where they went to Chicago and arrested people, and 50% of those people that they arrested were not even really criminal, right? Not really the 90% number. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. That's okay. That's kind of a balanced take.
So here's the thing that I think. So I think that if I was to allocate funding federally to try to solve the immigration problem, the first thing I would do, I would flood a ton of money into getting a bunch of money to new immigration judges to adjudicate all the backlog of asylum, refugee cases, etc. And the thing is that of all the asylees that have been let into the country in the last 12 years, we'll say, when it actually gets before a judge, they have an 87% chance of failure in getting deported. And so, like, I think if we flood, you're fine. If we flood that first, I think a lot of the people who are here on those claims are going to go away after actually having their hearing. And at that point in time, it will alleviate a lot of the process. Those who actually have valid asylum claims can stay under that principle and apply for new status, right? But 87% are going away. We got to get all those people from around the country before a judge, have it adjudicated, and then once that ruling is issued, pack them on their way or let them stay. That would help 85% of all the immigration that's come, not visa overstays, but other immigration that's been here.
Okay, so that was a really balanced take, Vince. I have a couple of problems with it.
Grid's unbalanced. That's the problem.
Go ahead. What you got?
That's probably true. So let me ask you, or let me just kind of give you my point of view. Then you can tell me tell me how right I am and how you're going to change your life. So the problem is first of all, one of the things that you said right out of the gate was that we needed to pump more money into these programs when we're already pumping a lot. Like, I mean, way more, I think, than we need to. I mean, it's honestly cheaper at this point. It's almost cheaper just deport them to like outer Mongolia. It would be cheaper to like fly them to the other side of China than to just deal with them here. I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek there, but not by much. Because we're spending a ton of money on it. I think that people are in denial about how much money we actually spend on this. And this is crazy. Loodle, pardon me.
Whatever. Loodle.
He made a point about, putting some money and resources behind judges so that we could get rid of the backlog. I think that's admirable as well. But it doesn't solve my overarching problem of while I think that for the most part, it can be argued that, some people come here with no ill will and they're not bad actors. They just want an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Great. Wonderful. However, those people are also taking the money that they make here that should stay in the communities here that needs to be paying the taxes for the social programs that you're talking about giving them, but it doesn't stay here. It goes to other countries so that they can then bring more people here, which is the opposite of what I think most of us really truly want. I think if we're really honest with ourselves about it, is we actually don't want much more immigration to happen. I think that even basically both of you said, well, what we need to do is we need to solve the backlog of immigration problems now and stop any more people coming through just willy-nilly and maybe making there an easier path for people to be able to come through, maybe, but maybe not.
I didn't say that.
Well,
okay. So Grid, here's the thing, right?
Sure.
When you're saying that, first of all, the idea that they're living here, they're paying taxes in some form, capacity or another, whether it's like local jurisdictional taxes or municipality taxes, right? Like say trash, or they're having to pay for electric or water,
sales tax,
sales tax, things like that.
Hold on, that's a wonderful sentiment. However, it's a drop in a bucket compared to the resources that they're pulling out of the system.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Is that they also pay federal taxes, but assuming that were the case,
often don't. That's a very popular talking point that has been disproven, at least in my area, that these people are not paying Social Security taxes. They're not paying any of these other things. So
that's correct. They're not paying Social Security or Medicare taxes.
They don't pay income tax.
Well, no. So the thing that I have to look for it because I don't have it on hand right now, and I'll see if I can find it later and send it to you.
Sure.
But the reason why they pay income taxes is because, at least I would say prior to the Trump administration, because I remember making this argument a few years ago, so it may have changed, is that the idea is that would help bolster them when it does come time for them to actually get their citizenship. That's why they would pay the income tax.
I've heard that rhetoric
But you
before,
can't
but
pay
I've
income
never
tax if you
seen
don't
that
have a
in
social
process.
security number, though.
Yeah,
You
see,
can't pay
You get
federal income tax if you don't have a social.
right.
You get an I-10, I-10, which is for that.
But the number of people who do that
But
is
they have
very
to
low.
But they have to be applied for. Actually, no, you're right. You can. That's a process. I get it. But if you're like undocumented and being completely undocumented here, you wouldn't go on and apply for an I-10 because it would flag you to get deported.
Same thing happens if you have an expired visa. If you go in and try and pay your income taxes, then you're probably going to get arrested. So it's just
I'll see
not.
if I can-
So at any rate, yes, I've heard that talking point before, but I think it's just that. I think it's a talking point with no teeth. I think the reality is still that by and large, the average illegal immigrant, or whatever you want to call them, takes out more than they put in. And unfortunately, which honestly, I have no problem. If I'm being really honest, I honestly don't have that big a problem with somebody who comes here, makes some money, puts money into the community, and it stays here, and they're not sending money over or wherever. I actually have much less of a problem with someone like that. And just for example, I'm going to give Vince this little tiny like gift. So years ago, I said I knew somebody that, had, was here illegally, and that my wife and I knew someone that was here. And this girl had been, she was, here on like a J1. She was from China. She'd been here on I think a K1 educational visa. And, then got the J1, which is, I think, education work. It's like work study. Basically, you can have a job, but you can't make more than X amount, or
you can't work more than 25 hours a week. Yeah.
Whatever. And so, she's working in an office as an intern and all of that. And she was going to get married and blah, blah, blah. But then her company downsized. They got rid of her. It's very difficult to get a company to go through all of the hoops that you have to go through to bring in a J1. Right. And so, after I think a month and a half or 2 months, she was here illegally. She basically was hiding out in friends' apartments and stuff. Like, it was very funny to me to watch it going on. And eventually, I think she ended up going back to China. But there was no real, she was not putting, she wasn't sending money back to China. She was actually, when she made money, she put it back in, she was putting it back in the local community and all of that. And as a matter of fact, I think her parents sent her money, especially when she was unemployed. So money was flowing into the United States because of her. And so I actually didn't have that much of a problem, right? She wasn't a drain on resources.
Sure. So, like, I think there's a couple different things.
I think more normally the opposite is true.
I think there's some buckets we need to put people in, right? So I think we need to say that that actually crossing the border is a crime. The whole narrative that's not a crime, we need to get rid of that. That's a different bucket, and going forward, it needs to be enforced as a crime. Now, what we do with past administrations not prosecuting those crimes, the people that are already here, needs to be an individual adjudication basis by an immigration court, right? The individual circumstance needs to be adjudicated by an immigration official. But I don't think we can keep going forward saying that crossing a border illegally is not a crime. We say it is a crime. It's been a crime, but we need to adjudicate that going forward on an individual basis. Because I don't think there's any other way forward to still have rule of law and keep. Sorry, go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I was gonna say illegal entry, which is the technical crime, is not punished. The punishment is not deportation. That's a immigration hearing situation in and of itself. Yeah. The punishment is technically fines or jail time. It's not deportation. That's not the technical punishment for that particular crime. And I think that it depends. It depends on what statute they're going under. There are 3 different statutes, right? And it depends upon how long you've been in the country before you're apprehended, how far across the border you've gotten, right? I got to pull it up, but it makes a big difference as to whether or not you get mandatory detention, deportation, or jail time. Yeah, I mean the
Go ahead.
statute I'm looking at is 8 USC 1325. That's
Sure,
the
sure.
specific one I'm looking at. That it just says the criminal offenses of improper entry in the United States by an alien, entry into a marriage for the purpose of evading immigration laws, and 3, establishing a commercial enterprise for the purpose of evading immigration laws. And I believe I'm trying to find it again. I thought I had the actual statute up. Here it is, right here. Cornell law.
Crackodopolis is talking about a bunch of New York stuff. I have a place in Jersey City, and I agree with all the nonsense in New York has been insane. So
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's interesting because to me, I just try to look at it when we're saying too, like people are sending money for other people to come over here. I'm like, sounds like more taxpayers to come and throw more revenue in. And here's my response. And when we're talking about throwing money towards immigration, if we have money to double,
We don't have any money to spend, but still, fuck it.
that's what I'm saying. If we're doubling our defense budget, or we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to construct Trump's ballroom or bunker, as he's now calling it, so he can justify his use of defense funds, or the millions. We can go down the entire litany of lists.
I'm sure the walls are like very, very ballistically safe.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that like I remember hearing that when they first started using this argument of it's a national defense or whatever. It's because they're using I believe it's a national emergency that they're using, and they're saying it's for national defense. And I'm like, how far down?
Ballroom of the wall.
The ballroom. I'm talking about the ballroom.
Okay, yeah, fuck that shit. Yeah,
yeah, the ballroom. And that's why I'm like, how far do we take that? Do we say that the chairs are not? And the reason they're doing that is because they need it for funding, right? So they're not saying it's for national defense because they're just like, it sounds good. They're using it because they're going to try to.
I honestly, I don't really care one way or the other about the ballroom. I found it really interesting that people were like freaking out about it, but
it's more so the taxpayer funds, right? So like that's what I was getting at. Is like if the idea is that we can afford the ballroom, we can afford the all these Freedom 250 events, which look into Freedom 250, American 250. It's pretty fascinating the difference between the two. I digress.
Oh, yeah.
If we have money for all of that, we have plenty of money to try to fix our immigration in some form or capacity.
I disagree. No, that's a bad
thing is,
argument.
like, it's a
Come on,
drop,
you can
it's
do
a
better
drop
than
in the
that,
bucket
buddy.
compared.
Come on,
It's a drop in the bucket compared to like healthcare spending. Medicare, Medicaid is like 40% of our domestic budget.
You know where we should take the
It's
money
huge.
from, Vince?
I'm not saying we need to take it away. I'm saying like that's
but where we can redistribute. That's the term, redistribute. You know where we can redistribute that money from?
Where?
We can take it out of the $800 billion Department of Education budget.
Oh no, we went down law enforcement, immigration, and now we're heading down education.
Hey, you're the one that brought it up. You said that we're spending all of this money.
Man.
The most useless money spent in America is with the Department of Education.
Department of Education is not a federal.
Why don't we just say, listen, why don't we just rock, skip, and jump right on over to the IRS, okay? And the theft that they're committing by taking our tax.
Let's get rid of the IRS. Flat tax, baby. Flat tax. Come on, Vince. You know you're with me on the flat tax. Come on. You know you are.
No. That's the other one. If we have money for the January 6th slush fund, like I said,
that's just retarded.
So,
come on. You cannot. Don't tell me you don't support a flat tax. Come on.
No, listen, I'm not a libertarian for a reason. So
Do you like the tax structure as
think
it exists? Like, what would you do to improve it if you could?
What could I do to improve the tax structure the way it is? So one of the things that I would
flat
do,
tax.
I would try to eliminate as many as I can in terms of deductibles that don't actually.
What the hell? Oh, you know what?
Hell?
Sorry, guys.
I got kicked.
No, it does that. I don't know why it does that. It just like the software just randomly does that.
You gotta upgrade to
Pro.
Pro.
I did not do that.
Upgrade to Pro grid. Stop using the free version.
It's not. It's not the free version.
I'm just joking.
It is not the free version, but there is something. There is something to this where it is a setting somewhere that does that shit. I just haven't found it yet.
So here's the thing. It's 9:45 where I'm at, And
You need to go to bed,
9:45
Vince.
where I'm at.
I gotta go to bed. I got work
It's
in the morning.
9:45 where I'm at too.
Yeah. So
Central time.
But I will say this. I am extremely looking forward to Nashville.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
Hey,
rad.
man, yeah.
I think it's gonna be really fun.
So
I'm looking
Vince, did we
forward
tell
to-
you that we've shifted you yet again?
That's okay. Listen, I told you I care more about the event itself than anything to do with me. Like I said, it would be fun for the original person I had, of course, but I understand logistics and everything. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was, the opportunity came to get Dylan. Dylan's like, yeah, I'll come down. And that's going to be really good. Dylan Burns versus Enrique Tarrio is going to be a really great debate, I think.
It'll be something to see. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Me and Dylan go back too, so it's gonna be really interesting to see Dylan as well in person.
Oh,
I've
cool,
never
man.
met him in person, so
I've never met him in person either. And we've got the line of debaters that we have is crazy. Like, we have tons of them. And it's just like, oh, I really want to see that guy debate. No, we don't have room for that in schedule anymore. Oh, no, you don't have room for that guy either. And so yeah, it's going to be very interesting going forward. And man, I can't wait. Spread the word through your audiences. We got to get rid of these raffle tickets, and we got to get a lot of people buying raffle tickets to.
Yeah.
We got 30 free tickets.
I got a lot of people. As soon as they get paid on the first, they're gonna be hitting that up.
That's awesome, dude.
There you go.
Awesome. And look, we're really trying to make this like probably a ridiculous event, like stuff that is
like wear
just
my
so
pimp
off the
suit, or
chain.
like how ridiculous.
Well, so like we're gonna have we're gonna split the debates. We're gonna have a guitarist come out and does like Southern rock. We're gonna give him like half an hour to an hour, so you can just
Freebird, play Freebird. He'll
right,
fucking
of course,
kill
right?
himself.
And so, but the thing is that he is from Alabama actually, and the thing is like you guys can. It's one of those things where you can just kind of like relax, and everybody can just chat and talk without having to worry about my next debate. Oh, who's the next debate or anything like that. And then at the end of the night, we've got 3 comics. We have 3 comedians that are going to take the stage and close us out. And that way everybody can just kind of relax and chill out and be like, yeah, this was cool.
Awesome.
And I hope the clips are awesome. There's some other things that really got to get nailed down.
Yeah.
My buddy Anson Knowles is I'm gonna get him to come up here and hang out with us. That's the metal food container guy.
That motherfucker, he's got some spicy words. Nah,
I'm telling you what, Anson is
funny. It's funny.
Well, Anson is, Anson's got balls of steel because he ran for political office in Alabama, and he attempted to expose corruption as he was doing it. So, that man's not afraid of waking up in a big field. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah, or in a padded cell.
He should look into the Trump corruption.
He should. He'll end up in the fucking Epstein Island fucking river. Face up.
yeah,
But no, man, I'm looking. It's been
gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. It's been
I'll see you in Nashville, man. Let's have a drink.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Well, you've got another debate coming up, right? Aren't you doing
me?
another one? No, Loodle. I
I
thought
got
he had
another one coming up. Yeah, but not against Vince. On the
I
first,
thought
I got one.
Yeah, because I thought you told me you wanted to do another debate, or you had another debate. Wasn't it on?
I have one. Yeah, and I have one set up for the first.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like,
It's not with Vince.
Yeah.
I was telling Vince I'll see him in Nashville.
No, I've got a debate right after Nashville with Dinesh D'Souza, 1v10.
Oh, big time!
That should be fun, man.
Yeah, that one's going to be
interesting. On the same
interesting.
side these days.
If you're going to run any legal arguments, man, hit me up. I'll help you out for real.
I may need some help on that.
I'd be happy
I'll
to
let
help
you know.
brother.
I appreciate it, man. I got to start preparing now because that was also my problem too. Is I only started prepping for this debate like 2 days out, and I rushed the hell out of that homework. So clearly, but anyways,
do your homework, Vince.
I will.
Do your homework.
Let me know who I'm
Say
debating
with
in
me, say
Nashville,
with
and
me.
I'm excited to be there, and that way I can
Yeah.
kind of start getting my prep and everything. So
Yeah, tell all your buddies, tell them bring their friends. You know, there's going to be, so one of the problems I don't have compared to a bunch of other people is I don't have any problem getting lefties at all. Like everybody else complains on the right, I can't get a lefty to debate me. And I'm like, well, that's because you're a disingenuous idiot.
It's
and
probably the
and they don't wanna-
assless chaps,
they-
actually.
They don't want to, they don't want to debate. You know, the thing that I found is that I can really disagree with somebody and be relatively polite to them. Although I was a little spicy with Pisco. That's okay.
Pisco was also being a little bit spicy with you.
He was being complete. He's being an ass. He was being an
Pisco has that
ass.
effect on people.
And I was like, I don't know whether I should be an ass back because I like Vince and Castle. I like these two guys. I don't want to blow them out, but this guy, I like Pisco. I'm like, should we go hard here a little bit? But no, it was all right. You know, it was fun.
This fucking guy.
But you know, I can still try to destroy your worldview and be polite about it. Okay.
Right.
Like I'm politely bombing you from afar. and so we'll, we got all, anyways, we've got all, I have all of these lefties available. Supposedly, well, I know, Not So Erudite is coming down. Her husband's going to be debating in my event, and I think he is a righty. Or center.
I don't know.
Yeah. So you get.
I've never met the gentleman.
Yeah, you get to meet Erudite, and that'll be fun. And we've got this new guy, Carson something or the other, who's big on TikTok, who's a big righty guy, and he's going to go up against.
Oh, that should be a thing.
Yeah, he's going to.
He's only talking like 60-second clips. He's like, well, let me refresh. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are y'all shitting on TikTok right now? I just want to be very clear.
That's me. Well,
no, I just never made it big over there, brother. No shame in the game, man.
Loodle, go check me out on TikTok. You'll see why I'm taking great offense to what you guys are talking about with TikTok right now, sir.
Oh, I will. I'll check you out.
Yeah. Taylor Fogarty got pretty big on TikTok. She's doing really well.
I'll like and follow and message stream or what. My daughters all love TikTok. I don't fucking understand it.
I only have TikTok now because I had to interface with some people on TikTok, and that's like literally the only thing that they fucking had.
There is a whole world out there, Grid, of lefties that are far left than I am.
Oh yeah, that is true. That's
crazy.
True.
There's some crazy bastards out there.
And I'll tell you,
I'm telling you, Vince is going to come back to the right. That Vince is, you know what? Vince is just in his Trump ain't good enough phase. And as soon as he gets a little taste of an actual Democrat president, he's gonna be like,
Vince is like a Clinton Democrat, which is about the same as most Republicans nowadays.
Well,
that's how I would mix, yeah.
Not to sit here on too long because we're way over time for me at least.
Yeah, and Vince has to go to sleep. Damn it!
I do. I'm a lefty. I sleep early because I don't have a job and I wake up late. But no, I mean,
you hit the bread line.
I made my transition. I'll just leave it there because then it's going to sound really clip worthy. Anyways, I made my transition to the liberal side during the Biden administration because I got into debates with other people on the right. And I'd be like, I don't think this is totally bad or whatever it may have been, right? Like the inflation.
Were you one of the ones that believed that Biden was sentient?
I think, listen, I don't think that Biden was like super all there. I'm willing to concede that. But I think that Trump is like a close second. Like he's not the most like all put together president in his second term. His first term wasn't much better, but it was certainly way better. I encourage anybody, go out there, look at it.
Consider he's just retarded.
Or he's just old. Like there's a thing.
He's old. He's like 80 something.
Yeah, he's 80
he's
something.
Like 79, I think. I think it's 79.
But I made that transition to liberalism through the Biden administration because I got into debates with the righties and they were consistently trying to like ostracize me from the right-wing movement. You're not really a right-winger, you're a liberal. I'm like, okay, well, let me look into the liberal movement. I looked into it and I said, it's really just a center-left thing. All
right, so let me ask you something. This is an important question. Do you think Donald Trump is a conservative?
Not a damn chance in hell.
Yes, yes, but because I think that a lot of so to be clear,
You're going to say
there
the
are-
overturn window has moved so
well,
far.
I think that when you look at one of the things is he's big on nationalism. Second, when you look at the fact that he wants to try to, even though he may be doing the opposite by spending taxpayer dollars on, Trump child accounts and things like that, he has typically been one to remove taxes, right? He ran on no tax on tips, things like that. Even though some of his policies may not totally align with that, his central core policy has been around reduction of taxes, super big nationalism, traditional
But
family
nationalism
values.
isn't a conservative thing per se.
Sure. But that's the thing too, is that like government programs are not uniquely left wing either, right? Like for example, if you look at things that happen under there's an authoritarian right and then there's a libertarian right. There's an authoritarian left and there's a libertarian left. And that's where you get your communism, that's where you get your fascism, that's where you get
it'd be a great discussion to have sometime, because I think that there's a lot of
Trump's a corporatist, really.
Yeah. Right, he's a technocrat. Basically, but so I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what things really are. For example, an anarchist is the furthest right that you can possibly get. They're not lefties. Like I think it's always weird, right? Like they are ultimate freedom, ultimate independent, smallest possible government. That's it, right? It just has to be that way. That's why an anarcho-capitalist is always going to be further right than me. And I'm pretty far right. But if you ask most people who just are participating in politics these days, they always get it backwards. And so I have I think it's a very interesting viewpoint, because I view Donald Trump as a Democrat in the kind of Kennedy Democrat sort of way. He might even be a little further left than Kennedy was, but he was the furthest right candidate we could get. Like, we couldn't get like an actual conservative that wanted to reduce the size of government, that wanted to push down and kind of get some control away from the national government and give it back to the states. We couldn't get an actual conservative who would do that. Trump's like the next best thing.
Well, I would say that, and then we'll let Vince go to sleep. I'm looking out for you, buddy, after this. I think the only thing that Trump really believes in at all is that he really has a deep love for America, and whatever America's in his head, he really loves. Other than that, I think a lot of the other policies or whatever he's put out in the campaign trail are either America filtered or a grab bag of stuff that's going to work populist wise.
Yeah,
I don't know what he actually believes deep down at all.
Very well could be.
I mean, he could believe anything. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's been great talking to you guys. Listen, I'm really, really looking forward to Nashville and any other future things you might do. I'm leaning more into these IRL things. So, man, I'm really excited about it. I enjoyed DebateCon in Dallas, or not DebateCon, GreatCon in Dallas.
GreatCon,
there you go, man. It was awesome. Getting to see everybody. It was really cool. So, looking forward to it.
Vince. I had a great time.
Yeah,
I'm too, brother.
All right, guys. Y'all take care. Thank you so much for it. Great debate, Loodle, by the way. So, see you guys later.
Take care, brother.
You guys have a great rest of your night. I'm going to get out of here myself.
All right. Hey, Greg, talk to you soon about that. We'll work everything out, eh?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to the first. We got that Iran debate.
Yes.
I'll go blood sports, man. I'll fucking get eyeballs. I don't care.
Bomb Iran. And anyway, yeah, let's make that happen.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right. Go away. Leave me alone.
I'm going. Bye. Fuck you too.
All right. See ya. Get out of here. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would raid you to somewhere, but I'm not gonna. So we're gonna get the heck on up out of here. I think that it's I think it's an important thing to get the heck on out of here. I appreciate everybody who came out. tonight, and we will see you again Friday. And I think I'm going to do Friday day shift, and I Friday the night shift may be a little weird because it may be late because I'm going to be flying Friday afternoon. I'm not really sure what time I will land and get back to the house. As always, be cool, wear the glasses if you need them, and go stand on somebody else's lawn. All right.
Did you know if you put your top lip and your bottom lip and you press them together, you will experience